We're going to get started at 6 o'clock. See if we can find seats for everybody. It's quite a crowd. I don't think we've had one like this in a while. Let's go ahead and close that door. All right, I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting to order, and I'm going to ask everybody to rise for the invocation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance, which the invocation will be by Councilwoman Leslie McPherson, and then Pledge of Allegiance by Officer Bruce Halliburton. Councilwoman McPherson.
Lord, I thank you for this evening. I thank you for the way that we can have open, transparent government. Help us to be honorable in the way we handle ourselves, that we would be honest in our decisions, that we would be accountable to the people, but ultimately know that we are accountable to you. So I ask that you bless the people that have even come tonight to participate, and just thank you that you love us and you care for us. In Jesus' name, amen.
All right, Officer Halliburton, if you would come up here to the podium, sir, and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you, sir. You all may be seated. Sir, if you'll hang on just a second, I want to say a few words about you. Actually, they wrote down more than a few. So, Officer Halliburton began his law enforcement career in 1991 as a United States Army military police officer, separating from service honorably in 1996. Officer Halliburton moved to Georgia, where in 2000 was hired as a member of the East Point Police Department. He rose through the ranks from patrol officer to lieutenant. Halliburton served in multiple units such as SWAT, street crimes, community policing, field training officer, detective, code enforcement, and his first love, uniform patrol. After 20 years of service to the citizens of East Point, Halliburton retired and is now a member of the Villa Rica Police Department, where he hopes his years of experience can be of value to the department and the citizens of Villa Rica. Thank you for your service, sir. All right. We do have, is Sharon back in here with us? It's a big crowd, so, all right. I want to recognize Sharon DuPont. She completed the Georgia Association of Convention and Visitors Bureau Leadership Excellence Certificate. Ma'am, if you'll come up. I'll ask Tom to say a few words. Is Janet here? I'm sorry, I didn't see. It's such a big crowd, I can hardly tell who all's here. Lots of times people try to escape after the work session. Come on up here, ma'am. And there's Janet. You got a handheld? And here's her certificate right here.
Ms. Sharon, you got this in May, correct? We're a little late recognizing you. I would like to present on behalf of the Georgia Association of CBBs and Leadership Excellence, the Leadership Institute at Columbus State University, to acknowledge Ms. Sharon DuPont, who is our tourism manager. So let's give Sharon a hand. I just want to say I'm proud of Ms. Sharon. She has done a lot for the city as far as tourism and getting Villa Rica on the map. She's won several awards and been recognized not only by the state but by the country. So we want to give her a big shout out and appreciate everything that she does. I know I do. I'm proud to have her on my staff. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am. Okay, and next up we got Jeffrey Petty, 25 years of service. Right here, sir. Y'all give him a hand, please. For 25 years, that's a long time. Here you go.
All right, so can you imagine 25 years here?
No.
Can you imagine doing anything for 25 years?
Yes.
David, which one of you got here first? Probably him.
Not by
A
much.
year, Miss Shirley? Do you have him beat by
What
a
if-
year?
No, you got me beat a year.
Oh, wow, all right, so here we go. So, what can I say about somebody that works in Villa Rica for 25 years that you could say in public, right? But what happens is, he does real work. Like, he's not sitting at a desk like I am and in meetings all day. He's operating equipment and outside, in the rain, in the cold, in the heat, all the time, taking care of our city. And we benefit from what he does all the time. We just don't know it. And he works with a really difficult group of guys, right? You're talking about a work group that is overworked, underpaid, has to come in emergencies. So when we're all thankful when it's snowing and iced up, that somebody's cleaning the streets, who's cleaning the streets?
We are,
They're-
and George knows and
Right? So this is the guy that does it. So when you see Jeff and you see the guys that wear these shirts, these are the guys that are taking care of Villa Rica when things are tough. And just every day. Jeff, thanks.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. And it says here that you've worked the entire 25 years in the street department, and that prior to that you was a firefighter. Thank you. Glad to have you, sir. All right, let's. Who is doing this? James Bentz? Is it that guy that's so exciting when he comes in? This is our audit summary, fiscal year 20. Financial and compliance audit summary presented by Malden and Jenkins, CPAs and advisors, James Bentz, who is a partner there. Good to see you again. It's been a while.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me here. Really excited all these people showed up to hear Audit Talk.
It's probably not what happened, but if it makes you feel better.
Hey, auditors, we got to live for something. So,
Gotcha.
Good evening, and thank you for having me. I am James Bentz. I am the partner for the city's audit engagement, and due to some scheduling conflicts on my end, it's now that we're presenting the 2020 results from September 30. So I believe each of you have a copy of our auditor's discussion and analysis. I'm not going to go through all the pages. It's there for your information, and certainly we can talk about anything, but I'm going to just kind of hit some of the highlights as we go through. So on page 2, I know we kind of come before you all once a year, but just to kind of refresh you on who Malden and Jenkins is, we're a large regional firm. We serve about 500 different governments throughout the Southeast. We are currently in the top 5 in the region for the number of single audit compliance audits we perform, and we serve about 100,000 hours of government service year-round. So we have 11 partners, myself included, who spend 100% of their day or 100% of their year working with local governments. So I'm not a tax guy, but I do specialize in local government audits. On page 4, kind of the high-level highlights of the audit, just to go over, we did issue an unmodified opinion. That's the clean opinion that states that the financial statements prepared by management for the year ending September 30th, 2020 were materially correct as presented by management. That's the clean opinion. That's what you want to receive each year in your audit and what you've received in the past. Our responsibility as the independent auditors is to express an opinion on the financial statements. Your management team, their responsibility is to prepare the financial statements as well as the information within those. So we do always want to stress that we are independent of the financial statement process, and all the numbers and all the information within your financial statements is provided and prepared by your management team. On page 5, I know Sarah's worked at this for a long time, so I do want to kind of take a minute to highlight this year was the first year that the city put together the Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, now referred to as the ACFR. This is above and beyond what the state requires for your basic set of financial statements. It is a little bit of a task to undertake, to say the least. It includes an introductory and a statistical section in the report, and it gives a good 10-year of trend data in the back. And it's tough to gather that information for the first year. The city did that this year, and we did issue the comprehensive annual financial report. It's been submitted to GFOA, the organization that reviews those, and we're looking to receive the certificate for excellence in financial reporting. Again, hats off to management. This is a big thing. You are definitely now in the minority of municipalities and governments in the state of Georgia that do this. So something definitely to be proud of. I'm going to skip over to page 10. Page 10 and 11, we kind of have some financial highlights from the year. Obviously, when anyone's looking at a local government, to try to evaluate how the year went, you're looking at your general fund because that's your main operating fund. And so on page 10, you'll see the past 5 years of your net change in fund balance, and you'll see this year the general fund actually added about $1.4 million to fund balance. Flipping over to page 11, to kind of put that in perspective, when you talk about fund balance of your general fund, you're not purely talking about cash. You're talking about the difference between your assets and liabilities. And what that means is you look at your general fund's fund balance compared to your annual operating needs for the general fund to evaluate where you are health-wise in your general fund. And you'll see we've got, you got the bar or the line graph there. The blue represents your expenditures on an annual basis. The red line represents where your fund balance is ended each year. You'll see for September 30th, 2020, we had a total fund balance of about $7.7 million compared to your annual operating expenses of about $12.8 million, which is about 58%. So your general fund balance is in a good position. The June 30 recommendation from GFOA is to have about 3 months of reserves in there. You all have about 5, obviously, in the calendar where your cash flow being your significant cash flow item being property taxes coming in the back half of the year that have to then carry you forward for a full year, with that being your predominant revenue source. You're going to be a little heavier in fund balance at September 30th than you would see at a local government at June 30. On page 12, just to highlight one of the things when you talk about your proprietary funds, your water sewer fund and your sanitation fund, what you want to look at there is the cash flows. They don't typically have a fund balance in the way that the general fund does. So typically we'll look at cash flows from operations, and you'll see your total proprietary fund cash flow from operations this year was about $5.4 million compared to $5.0 million the year before. Again, that's cash flows from operations. You use those cash flows that you bring in to then pay for debt service, pay for capital expansion, pay for system maintenance. Those are the kind of capital related items that you use your operating cash flows from. So the $5.4 million doesn't all go to the bottom line. That's being used to inject into the system itself and to make capital acquisitions and, again, make financing payments. So we'll skip to page 14 and 15. On the bottom of that page, we do have 2 separate reports that we issue along with the financial statements. We have our Yellow Book report, which is the report on internal controls, and then we have a single audit report. This year, the city did exceed $750,000 in federal expenditures, the bulk of that being your CARES Act that you received at the end of the year. Those program funds were tested and audited as a major program this year, and we issued an unmodified opinion on the CARES Act as it relates to the federal compliance. And so that was a new report that you don't traditionally see in your financial statements. It varies on the need year to year whether or not you exceed the $750,000 threshold. And so we did have that for September 30th, 2020. A couple of items to point out on page 16. It doesn't necessarily jump out when you read our opinions, but as part of the audit process, we do review management estimates and judgments that are used in the financial statements. Through that process, we didn't notice any unusual or out of the norm for this size municipality estimates or judgments used by management. Everything was consistent and within generally accepted accounting principles. And so we do like to just make sure that's emphasized and expressed. And then also at the bottom of page 16, we've been able to say this, and I always, when I have the opportunity, do want to kind of pat management on the back. We did not have any difficulties working with management this year. If you've never been through an audit, everyone describes it as a really fun process. So we ask for a lot of information, and then we come in and we ask for more information. We ask questions. So we really appreciate Sarah and her team on getting that information to us this year to be able to conduct the audit and get the reports issued out. I'll go to page 18 and just hit these couple of items here. As a result of some of the audit adjustments that were posted this year, we did have one item that, due to the size as it relates to the Development Authority, was required to be reported as a material weakness. There was a journal entry for about $193,000 to correct some of the reporting for a year-end closeout entry related to the Development Authority. That entry has been posted. It's reflected in your system. It's not an operating item. It's something that we've met with management. We've kind of discussed the process of how to make sure this doesn't show up in the future. But again, it's a year-end closeout item that, just because of the magnitude as it relates to the Development Authority's activity, is required to be reported as a material weakness. On page 19, we also had one item of non-compliance. Your SPLOST fund and your capital projects fund had a budgeted expenditures which were not balanced according to state law. The expenditures exceeded the available fund balance from a budget standpoint. Operationally, it was fine. The budget amendments that were proposed during the year just intended to use more fund balance than was actually available after the 19 audit was wrapped up. And so, again, we've met with management, and we've talked with Sarah and with Jennifer, and making sure that we've got those budget amendments in place this year so that we don't have that issue going forward. On page 20, we did have a couple of items that we just set as part of the audit process that we identify, kind of as management recommendations. There's certainly items that we think are important to communicate, but they don't result in deficiencies in the control structure. So the first item on here relates to your information technology systems. Just overall, as we kind of worked through and evaluated some of the controls related to the IT process, there was some room for improvement with the risk assessment process, as well as testing of the backup servers. And so you've got processes in place to ensure backups are being stored and maintained, but not necessarily annually testing the use of those backups, of whether or not they provide good data. And then at the bottom of the page, I know this kind of seems like a small thing, but it's certainly something that we want to make sure is intended and planned going forward. The Hotel Motel Fund, at the 8% rate, you have certain requirements that you're supposed to expend the amounts within the fiscal year. There was a small amount that was not expended during fiscal year 2020, which is generally when you're planning to do a larger project, so you save it up. We just want to make sure to point out going forward that we're evaluating that, and we make sure we're staying compliant with state law on the timing of those expenditures related to the Hotel Motel Fund. Last item to point out on page 21, if any of you have trouble sleeping tonight, there's several pages of the new upcoming accounting standards coming out. GASB's been very busy. We've got between statement number 84 and statement number 97 that are going to be applicable coming down the pipeline in the next couple of years. 84 is really the most is the closest one and will be applicable for the city this coming fiscal year, and it deals with how you account for fiduciary activities. So the activities related to the court is going to change a little bit in how we see it in the report. But this is just for your information. All of these statements that are coming down, we work with management to make sure they're aware and that nothing's catching anyone by surprise, and they'll be implemented appropriately. But obviously, you all are the decision-making body, so decisions you make on a day-to-day basis could change what's applicable and what's not applicable throughout the year. So we want to make sure you have the information, but do rest assured, management's aware, and I know both participate in our quarterly CPE training that we offer to our clients. So they're staying aware and abreast of the statements as they come out. With that, if you all have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them, but that's all I have for the presentation this evening.
Okay, thank you. That was very exciting. Council, do any of you have any questions? I'm sure you've already read it. We've had this actually for a while, probably a couple of weeks. No questions? Okay, they'll take your advice about the reading material later tonight.
There we go.
Thank you for being here.
Well, thank you all.
All right. We're going to move on expeditiously here. I would entertain any changes to the agenda before we consider adoption.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I would like to table items D1, institution of fee for after-hours use of the meeting room of the library on days of normal operations.
Okay.
Table E1, resolution of support for changes to state highway system and exception of 2 roadways. And table item G1, agreement with GDOT for roundabout lighting assistance for SR8 at CS 352 and CS 968 Connors Road.
Okay, that's how I see it. Are there any other proposed changes? If there are none, I would entertain a motion to adopt the agenda as amended.
I move to adopt the agenda as amended.
All right, a second?
Second.
All right, I have a motion to adopt the agenda as amended and a second. Any discussion? All in favor? All right, that's unanimous. We have an adopted agenda. All right, do I have a list? It's long. Okay, so just as a matter of housekeeping, if you had an item that you were here about tonight that ended up on the consent agenda, and you still wanted to talk about it, I'm going to give some opportunity after I go through this list of those who are giving public comment. This will be your time to get up and speak. That is items that made it onto the consent agenda earlier today in our work session. So if you're here for any of those items, they've already been approved. They're going to formally be approved shortly, but they're on the consent agenda. If you want to talk about it, this is going to be your chance. Otherwise, you're going to find out that we're going to skip it. All right. So please keep your comments on a professional level. We will not accept comments that are considered by the chair to be of a personal attack on any individual or group of individuals. If you deviate from this protocol, you'll receive a warning from the chair. If you deviate a second time, you'll be leaving. Only one person speaking at a time, and please no comments from the audience. We're going to give you 3 minutes. When you come up, please give us your name and address for the record. And our first person up is Andy Sitzer, and I'm sorry I may get some of this wrong.
Mr. Mayor, you might
Yes, sir.
also mention that there are several public hearings that are coming up on zoning matters that you would not need to speak at public comment.
Right, so let me clarify. So if you have an item on here that made it onto the consent agenda, you're not going to have another opportunity after this to speak. However, if you are here about an item that is part of a public hearing, and you can see that on the agenda, you do not need to speak at this time. You will get another opportunity during the public hearing. However, you can do both. So if I call your name and you intend to speak later in a public hearing, just let me know that. I'll move on to the next person. Andy Sitzer.
Yeah, I'll speak later.
Thank you, sir. Lauren Liger, same thing. Doug Lang.
Speak during the public hearing.
Okay. David Daughtry. All right. Becky Singh. Okay. I can't even read that one. And I know that person's here for something else. And that person's here for something else. Otis Redding's back. Yes, sir. Sam Perkins and Rex Camp. Don't know. Yes, actually, if you're here to talk about the historic preservation, is that what you're here for? That did make it onto the consent agenda. So if you would like to speak now, there won't be another opportunity. So give us your name and address for the record, and you'll have 3 minutes, sir.
Is there somebody can hand stuff to you?
Will you hand it to the clerk? Thank you, ma'am.
I just need one of you.
All right, not a problem. Go ahead.
I am presenting
Rex, would you?
Rex
mic-
Camp, 719 Old 10-yard road, Bull Run.
and just speak in the mic.
Okay.
Here.
I'm presenting once again in opposition to the VRHPC and the adoption of the ordinance to create the downtown Billerica Historic Preservation District. I want to reiterate that I'm not opposed to historic preservation of Billerica. I am opposed to having a commission that does nothing that promotes historic preservation except talk. My reasoning for this comes from the minutes of the VRHPC meetings. In January 2015, the commission in the minutes stated that the Kindly Marksman House was a priority project for the commission. By now, you know the outcome of that endeavor. The house exterior and possibly the interior is in shambles and to the point of almost being financially and physically impossible to repair. As you know, the VRHPC recently held an emergency meeting to grant a certificate of appropriateness with conditions. As I read through the conditions, I tried to look into the conditions for both sides. The sides of the condition writer is nothing more than a wish list for the property owner to fail. The owner side, from my point of view, is I cannot do anything to repair the property under these conditions. Subsequently, nothing gets done, and that is the VRHPC. At the last VRHPC meeting, I learned that from Mr. Ron Johnson that the VRHPC taking the Conley Marchman House as a project was not appropriate. This may be not the exact word, but it is the sentiment of what he said. It is my belief that in any group, commission, or otherwise does not have the ability to assist in whatever their professed area of concern is, should not continue to drain the resources of the founding organization of this, in this case, the city of Villa Rica. Over the last couple of months, I have given a great deal of thought to the dilemma facing the city of Villa Rica and the commission under Chapter H of the Planning and Zoning Ordinance. The question to you here is tonight is, what do you see for the city in the next 50, 75, or 100 years? Do we want it to look like it is today, or do we want it to progress into something that is better than what it is today, as it has in the past? The truth is that the only thing that will come of Chapter X and the VRHPC is the downtown, and the downtown historic district is if you approve it, it will cost the city money through the unneeded use of manpower, aggravation of property owners and businesses and will, in the end, be worth nothing to this city.
All right. Mr. Camp, I made a mistake, and let me clarify this for everybody. You actually will get a chance to speak about this again. I forgot, this one is on a public hearing, so you're going to get to finish in a little while, okay?
I'm finished.
All right,
And
thank you, sir.
And I want, if y'all will read what I said to you, exactly what I said.
All right, thank you, sir. All right, I have nobody else on my list, so again, is there anybody here who would like to speak now in public comments? If there are, come up, give us your name and address for the record, and we'll give you 3 minutes. If you want to speak on an item that's on the consent agenda, you should go ahead and speak. Give us your name and address for the record, and got 3 minutes, sir.
My name is Win Burnett, 91 Stockmar Road, and I would just like to thank Miss Janet for all her hard work that she did for the upcoming event that we're going to be having, a fundraiser for pets, and thank you so much. And I'd just like to tell everybody I'm so busy, my wife can't even get an appointment for 2 weeks. If your animal's sick or hurt, though, you come up to my clinic and I'll see you. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, sir. Thank you for being here. All right, is there anybody else here who would like to speak in public comments tonight? All right, seeing none, I am going to close the public comment portion of our meeting, and I am going to move into council updates. This is not, sorry? I recognize Mr. Collins in the back, your state representative. I didn't even see you slip in back there, sir. Okay, let me now move to council updates. This is an opportunity for council members to talk about subjects of interest or concern. Would anybody like to be recognized? Mr. Young.
I would like to thank all of the citizens of Villa Rica for doing what they do to make Villa Rica one of the friendliest small towns in the United States. Out of thousands of small towns from Alaska to Florida,
That deserves
we
a
were
hand,
one
I
of
think.
15.
That's a good update. Any further? All right, Ms. McPherson.
I'm not sure I can top that, but I will say this. From the time I was elected back in 2014, we talked about the intersection at Dallas Highway and Punkintown Road, and whether it was going to be a traffic light or whatever, and every rush hour traffic's backed up that highway going both ways, and we finally got our roundabout. Now, there's a little bit of finish work to be done. They've got to do the concrete in the center. That'll help. It took a while, but GDOT got it done, and we finally can move traffic there. And there's a lot of people that are going to be grateful for that.
Honestly, that does deserve a hand, too. Because although I get a lot of mixed reviews about that. I'll call them reviews. I get complaints and I get, kudos. But at the end of the day, it really was the right thing to do for traffic in this city. All right, anybody else want to be recognized?
Mayor,
Mr. Montahan.
I just want to say to city staff, particularly Tracy's staff, you did an excellent job with the July 3rd extravaganza. It was great to have that event again after taking a year hiatus last year. It was a very good event, and we appreciate the citizens for coming out and supporting it every year as well.
Yep, I agree with that. Thank you. Anybody else? Okay. All right, I will close council updates, and we will move on to the consent agenda. Earlier today at 3 o'clock, the city council met in a work session, and it was rather long, and we created a consent agenda that moved 34 items onto this consent agenda, and I'm going to read them all out, and then we're going to ask for a motion to adopt that. But that allows us to reduce the time of this meeting, the actual meeting of the mayor and council. So here we go. Item number 1, approval of revised Villa Rica Cemetery Commission bylaws. Item 2, amendment to section 10.01 Historic Preservation Ordinance contained in City of Villa Rica zoning code. Item number 3, resolution of support for the city's application for the Georgia Initiative for Community Housing. Item number 4, 2021 Main Street Staff Training, Georgia Downtown Conference. Item number 5, 2021 Community Development Grant Application, Pet Jam Fundraiser Concert. Item number 6, Explore Georgia TripAdvisor Marketing Co-op. Item number 7, resolution of support for the city's application for the 2021 Healthy Cities Campaign Grant Assistance Program. Item number 8, purchase Mavic 2 Enterprise Drone Package. Item 9, drone operator training and licensing. Item number 10, purchase 36 Cradle Point IBR 600C mobile routers. Item number 11, purchase 10 flock safety cameras. Item number 12, purchase 31 shark fin antenna and installation. Item number 13, request to purchase John Deere Gator for the North Plant. Item number 14, request for engineering services by PC Simonton and Associates for the West Plant influent pumping facility modifications. Item number 15, emergency purchase for North Plant aerator. Item number 16, purchase of North Plant belt press. Item number 17, contract award for the Town Branch Interceptor sewer. Item number 18, contract award for wastewater pump station and manhole rehabilitation. Item number 19, approval of work order with Brennan Jones to design modifications to the Shoreline Lift Station. Item number 20, installation of security cameras, security access, and gates at the old West Plant for the new distribution/collection department compound. Item number 21, upgrade security cameras at the water plant. Item number 22, fiscal year 2021 budget amendments number 132 through 172. Item number 23, resolution to execute grant from the American Rescue Plan Act. Item number 24, purchase Celebrite cell phone forensic package. Item number 25, purchase 51 FN-15 semi-automatic patrol rifles. Item number 26, purchase 9 Mossberg 590A1 less lethal shotguns. Item number 27, purchase 51 Kel-Tec KS7 shotguns. Item number 28, purchase Berna Technologies Pepperball launcher kits. Item number 29, Douglas County Radio channel upfitting. Item number 30, Douglas County Radio Network Authorization Agreement. Item number 31, resolution to adopt Carroll County's hazard mitigation plan. Item number 32, resolution to execute loan number 2020024 with Georgia Environmental Finance Authority. Item number 33, authorize staff to initiate a rezoning request for the Mirror Lake PUD. Item number 34, increase income qualifications for low-income senior discount. Does anybody see anything different? If not, I will entertain a motion to adopt the consent agenda.
I move to adopt the consent agenda.
Second.
I have a motion to adopt the consent agenda and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor? All right, that's unanimous. And with that, we have cleared 34 items off of the agenda. We will move to tab B. It's exciting stuff, right? Almost as exciting as the auditor. Did he leave? I owe him something. All right, governing body, B1, approval of the minutes. Meeting minutes of May 11th, 2021, and a special called meeting minutes of July 1st, 2021. Council, you've had an opportunity to review these minutes. Are there any changes? Are there any corrections?
Mayor, I noticed a small change for the May 11th meeting. In the item, I believe it is C4, there is the word lean, and I believe it should be the word lieu instead.
So, say that again, lean?
Item B4, the description states, in lien of contribution to the sidewalk bank, and I believe it should say in lieu of contribution to the
That
sidewalk
sounds
bank.
right.
That is my one correction.
All right, any others? Okay, is there a motion to adopt approve the minutes as modified?
I move to approve the minutes of May 11th, 2021, and July 1st of 2021 as amended.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor? All right, that's unanimous. All right, let's move into community development, C1. This is going to be Ron, RA-02-20-450, Edge Road, parcel number 014-502-50026. LIT Acquisitions LLC of Dallas, Texas is requesting a rezoning, and there will be a public hearing after the presentation. Will you briefly present this item, Ron?
Certainly.
Go ahead.
LIT Acquisitions is requesting a rezoning from C2 commercial medium density to I2 industrial medium density. They're looking to permit the construction of a proposed 347,000 square foot warehousing and distribution facility, and it's on a 25.83 acre parcel. If you recall, at I believe it was the April 13th meeting, the City Council reverted this back to the Planning Commission being that we had some new information that came in between the Planning Commission meeting and the City Council meeting. So the City Council took it back to Planning Commission. The Planning Commission ended up voting approved it for 3-0. So. The applicant has revised their intersection audit report on April 26th. So that report has been included. They've put also a new letter of intent in there, and the addendums for the intersection safety audit. So the applicant is looking at doing a traffic circle that's off-site at the Liberty Road and Edge Road intersection. And they've also submitted an alternative to that plan for a traffic light as well, subject to funding.
All right. Council, does anyone have any questions for Ron before we get to the applicant and the public hearing?
Yes.
All right, Ms. McPherson.
In regards to the traffic circle, their plan was to actually provide a traffic light, correct?
Yes, that was the initial plan.
If the traffic circle, as you all had met, you had a little team
Yes.
that met to talk about moving traffic, and it's my understanding that they would, if we did the roundabout traffic circle, that the money that they would spend for a traffic light would go toward that cost, and the city would pick up the remainder.
That is correct, yes.
Okay.
Do we have an estimate on the remainder, the amount, dollars?
I'd have to defer to Tom.
Yeah, council approved an engagement with Croy Engineering to look at that, and the cost in their estimation, including land acquisition, would be almost $2 million. And because of the driveway to the Chevron, they did not feel like that it was a practical application.
Okay.
So we're back to a traffic light.
Yes, sir, Mr. Carter.
Okay, we've discussed this several times, and it came up during that discussion that GDOT would not allow us to put a traffic light at Edge Road and Liberty Road. Is that true or false?
I've been told that by the district engineer.
It would not be allowed.
So Tom,
All right,
did I
Mr.
understand?
Montahan.
I'm sorry, did I understand this correctly, that we don't have a feasible option? Did you say that the roundabout's not feasible?
Correct.
And the traffic light's also not feasible
No,
per GDOT?
The question is whether GDOT actually has jurisdiction that far from the interstate.
Okay.
If they're reserving the ability to put a traffic signal at the ramps, the southern ramps on Liberty Road to I-20, from eastbound onto Liberty Road and eastbound off of Liberty Road, if they're reserving the right for a traffic light there, then that means that we can't put one at Edge Road.
All right. Are there any
Another
other?
question? I'm
Mr.
sorry.
Mon?
And I don't know, Ron, Bobby, Tom. So I was reviewing the memo to amend the intersection safety audit, and frankly, my takeaway from that is that they are committing to nothing. They provide that they give this, the developer will contribute costs of a signal to the city to use towards the roundabout. The city will be responsible for the remaining funding, acquisition of required land, design, and construction of the roundabout. But then the next paragraph reads, should the city be unsuccessful in the funding or land acquisitions I mentioned above, the below improvements are proposed. It actually doesn't even name in the next 4 or 5 items there a traffic light or any alternatives. So the way I read this is, we get a widening of Edge Road, a dedicated turn lane, some signage, and a warning beacon, but we don't get an actual improvement at that intersection whatsoever.
That's not my understanding with the applicant, and with talking with the applicant. And when I look at the list here, that second paragraph, number 2 particularly, and even though it doesn't specifically state a traffic light, in order to put a left-hand turn lane on Edge Road, there needs to be a traffic light there. It's not possible to do it any other way.
Okay. From my perspective, I don't have their committal either in a stipulation or condition or in this letter. So, 5 years from now when this thing is all being built and we may or may not be here, there's nothing on the record to show that they were committed to a traffic light or doing any kind of infrastructure improvement there at all. And it's basically entirely dependent on whether or not the city expends its resources to acquire this land. And that's, eminent domain, condemnation, we may not be able to, that you're relying on a third party who's not in this room today at that corner or in the Chevron from cooperating. And in my understanding from the previous P&Z meetings, they were approached by this group and they've declined to sell their piece of property at that corner. So.
So my thought process with the 5th condition that's on there, and it's relatively broad. It says installation of, and that was by design, installation of all off-site traffic improvements indicated in the traffic study addendum. So in order for them to, let's say that in the future, a year from now, they choose not to do a traffic light at all. They say, you know what, we don't want to do a traffic light, or we ran into some sort of a problem. Then there goes the approval right there, because the 5th condition is not being satisfied, and it's to do all off-site traffic improvements that were inside of their letter. So, I mean, the council, of course, as always, can change that condition to make it more tight. But I wanted to try to do something that was more catch-all, to where everything that was submitted to us, and this has been going on now since last fall, everything that's been submitted to us would have to be completed, or they simply don't move forward.
My issue with condition number 5 would be that it does not lay out a deadline for them to do that. Is that before issuance of an LDP? Is that before issuance of a CO? We recently tried to put a condition on a commercial property regarding a sign, and because of some vagueness in that stipulation, we did not get the kind of sign that the council desired to be installed. And so I think we have a similar vagueness here too. So if this council is thinking about approving it, I would want to modify that fifth condition to at least put some sort of deadline as to when those improvements have to be done.
Is Bobby here, or Tom, when would that, is there an arbitrary deadline with regard to LDP, or when would this have to be met?
All conditions would have to be satisfied before the facility opened for business at CO time.
Okay, so they would not be able to get the CO, although they would have done,
Yes.
exorbitant amount of work, but they wouldn't get the CO if they didn't meet this
That is
fifth.
correct.
Okay, I just want to be clear about that. Is that,
Yeah, I think if you're waiting till CO before you require these installation of traffic improvements, you now got probably a multi-million-dollar building sitting out there and you've got them doing all kinds of side improvements, and now you're saying, oh, we have to reverse your approval. I don't think that makes much sense. That's my concern there.
okay, well, let's just see where we get to a little further in this. Does anybody have any questions at this stage? Ms. McPherson?
Yes, so when did we get this information on the roundabout, that wasn't going to work?
Let me see.
Yeah, Bobby's thinking 3 weeks ago, maybe, when we got back the report from
Okay,
Floyd.
so here's my question. Last week I started this. Went through all this information. I'm still seeing roundabout as an option. I'm taking that into my consideration. Am I missing anything here?
What you're getting is what went to P and Z, is my understanding. Is that?
That's correct.
I would have
unmodified?
really liked to have known that information, because I was basing that as, that's probably what's gonna happen there. We were talking about it just last night in a conversation about the traffic flow, because I had I don't really have a problem with this project per se. I know some people would like something more commercial over there. The market is different right now. My big concerns were that the residential area be protected buffer-wise and noise-wise from this, that the landscaping and the opaque fence, is that what fencing we would call it, and the landscaping would be attractive looking. And another really big one, if not the biggest one, is the way traffic would flow. Edge Road, the hill over here, and I had no idea until 5 minutes ago that roundabout was not feasible. And I was thinking that was the best way everything was gonna happen, so I feel like
They've also determined that correcting the hump in the road is not practical
Yeah, I
because
didn't-
of the topo of the truck stop.
I didn't even know that was an option till yesterday. Now, so a traffic light is in the picture, maybe.
Got to.
GDOT may say no, but we don't have any of that in writing. Can we demand a traffic light or not? I don't mean demand, that kind of sounds kind of harsh, but require.
You can. Based on an email that I've had with Lauren, the representative for the applicant, and this was on April 13th, and I'll just read it out to you. It's only 2-3 lines here. GDOT doesn't have jurisdiction on the road. However, we do exceed their spacing of 230 feet for a 45-mile-per-hour road with the Liberty driveway. So this kind of goes into the Liberty driveway a little bit. As for the ramp to the signal, I don't see any distance requirements in the driveway manual. The only distances for signals that they note are from signal to signal. This requirement is 1,320 feet for a rural road. We exceed this distance to the signal at I-20 West. So the gist of that is really in the beginning, that it's not a GDOT road at all. And she's claiming that there's no requirements there. So that's the assumption that there can be a signal at this intersection.
Okay, because the traffic plan that the team came up with looked pretty good. The right turn in, the turnaround for the trucks that would be on Edge Road.
The left-hand turn
They
only
had to come out
onto
left
Edge.
turn only out of there.
That's right.
But that intersection with them coming over the hill, there'll be a warning light. They also were going to put in a warning light. Is that not
We
right?
talked about warning lights and rumble
Because of the
strips.
lack of view, because of that hump in the road, so they know that light is coming.
Yeah.
And are rumble strips part of that? I can't remember.
I believe they were a part of that discussion. Rumble
Okay.
strips.
Okay, I was thinking it was pretty comprehensive. All righty.
Okay, at this stage, do we have any more questions for staff?
One question, I'm sorry.
All right, Mr. Montpelier.
Ron, just to clarify, that email that you read was, who was that from again?
Lauren Layer, she's in the audience tonight as
Right.
well.
But is she a representative of GDOT or for the developer?
For the developer.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, any more? All right, is the applicant here? Would the applicant like to come up and speak? Please come up and give us your name and your position with your company, and
Okay.
we'll hear from you.
Good evening. My name is Lauren Lair. I'm with Eberly and Associates, and we're the civil engineering firm. We also have the developer here as well. But to address your concerns, I have had emails with Davina, and she did say that that road is not under GDOT's jurisdiction, and they cannot require, or they cannot rule over what Villa Rica would allow. I don't have that email with me, unfortunately, because I didn't know that the roundabout.
What'd you say your name was?
Davina. Sorry. Davina Williams.
And she is with GDOT?
Yes, she is the, I believe she's the assistant director of District 7.
Okay, continue.
And so she did say that Villa Rica, or they did not have jurisdiction over that intersection, so that would be not in their control. Also, I believe you said that we weren't showing the signal, but number 5 has the, number 3 says the signal at the intersection of Edge and Liberty. So that's where, for in the
That says signage.
signage, oops. Sorry. Okay. Well, we can, we are, it is our intent to install that signal. That was my bad spelling.
Okay.
I'm an engineer.
I understood. Okay.
So yes, it is the intent that we would be installing that signal. And usually we do with that at CO, and the reasoning is, we don't want to mobilize twice when we're doing these constructions. So that's just how it'll work better for our flow. And then they can also do that road improvement after they've done their construction rather than running their equipment over a brand new road.
Right, yeah, definitely. I mean, signage and signal are a significant
Yeah.
difference in what they say. So
Yes,
that does
sorry.
that does address some of my concerns. Thank you.
So let me ask you, everybody does it different. There's no way, set way to do it. But do you want to present something, or would you like me to ask the council to ask you questions? I mean, how would you like to start?
It's, I guess y'all can
Okay,
ask me
sometimes
questions.
people have a presentation, and I want to make sure you have an opportunity to do that if that's what you want to do.
No, I'm okay. I
Okay,
think
all right.
I think we kind of presented it last time, so if you would like me to re-present it, I can.
It's up to you. All right, council, does anyone have any questions?
Yes.
All right, Mr. Young.
Your communications with Davina from GDOT, was there any discussion about conflict in distances between a potential light at the eastbound I-20 entrance and exit ramps and Edge Road?
No, sir, because that would be within GDOT's jurisdiction, so they can't rule over where you would put yours. When they do that, they would probably, adjust the signal timings to match both of those intersections being
But it
there.
was my understanding that if GDOT put a signal at the ramps, Edge Road was too close for another signal, according to typical traffic regulations and guidance.
According to the Georgia Department of Transportation regulations, yes, but not
So
according to
if-
Villa Rica's.
So if the possibility of a light at the entrance exit ramps for I-20 wasn't brought up, then they may not be including that in their calculations.
It was also, from my understanding from the last city council meeting, that GDOT wasn't entertaining a signal there, was my understanding that they would not do it.
It's my understanding that they've been considering it.
Okay. Well,
So-
either way, it's still City of Villa Rica's road. So, I mean, it's up to y'all. We can install one there.
Okay, anyone else? Okay.
Michael, I'm sorry, can I get clarification on what he was asking there? So are you, Michael, were you kind of saying that if in the event that we put a signal at Edge and Liberty, GDOT may not signalize I-20 in Liberty?
They may not, or they may ask our signal at Edge Road to be removed.
Okay.
If the distance is not far enough.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking you were asking. Okay, thank you.
That was my thought. It seems mighty close with I-20 and then right there. I don't get that, although I see what they're saying with the four-way there to take care of the traffic and the trucks, but I just can't see a light that close to the light at I-20. That's my thought.
Sure. Okay, are there any other questions for Lauren?
One more question, I'm
All
sorry,
right,
Mayor.
Mr. Montahan.
I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think you were about to say that you did not, clarified that you also did not know that the roundabout was not going to be an option there.
That's correct.
Okay. All right. Okay. So the developer didn't know that the proposed remedy was not a remedy whatsoever. Just to put that in the record.
Okay. Are there any other questions for the applicant? Okay. If not, then thank you. You can hang out. There may be some questions in a minute. I'm going to open this up for a public hearing. Is there anyone here who would like to speak for or against this item? And if there are, I'm going to ask you to come forward. It doesn't matter if you're speaking for or against. Give us your name and address for the record, and we'll give you 3 minutes to speak. Okay. Seeing no one? All right, well, let's go. Just give us your name and address for the record, and we'll give you 3 minutes.
My name is Richard Canjemi, 243 Edge Road. I'm about half a mile from the intersection we're talking about, and I definitely think we need a traffic signal there. There are so many issues that have gone by with my eyesight to see that we need a traffic signal there. Also, I own the trucking company East West Express, which has several trucks going up and down that road. And a traffic signal would definitely help control the traffic and provide a higher degree of safety, in my opinion. That's about all I had to say.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Yes, sir. Come on up. Give us your name and address for the record, and we'll give you 3 minutes.
My name is Doug Lang, 262 South Cowell Road, downtown Billerica. I was not planning on speaking on this issue tonight, but just from hearing some of the questions asked by council and some of the non-answers or some of the information not known by the developer, I just have a couple comments, I guess, real quick about that. It seems to me that, as mentioned, the lights, the proximity of the one on the entry to the I-20 and Edge Road is a disaster in the making, just for trucks to back up. There is already truck stop there and plenty of truck traffic. The point raised by Mr. Matthew, forgive me, talking about a multi-million-dollar, the clause is that, okay, but we won't issue a CO. That just sounds like a lawsuit in the making, from the developer after they've spent about X millions of dollars developing this, and now this piece of paperwork, and they're just going to walk away from this investment because the city doesn't issue a CO. So it almost seems like we're, I don't want to say almost contorting ourselves to somehow make this happen when there's just really nothing that I've heard so far in no actual way of making this a very, easily viable. It just seems like it's just got one problem on top of another. And my experience in just all things is for every problem just that you anticipate, there's 5 things that come up that you didn't even anticipate. And so not any reflection on the group. I mean, you put more heads together, you come up with better ideas, but there's still always things that happen that you just never anticipated. And I'm curious, it's a 347,000 square foot facility. How many trucks come there a day? How many trucks would that mean per hour? How many trucks would that mean then come out of that, enter and exit that facility per hour? If you've ever just sat at Liberty Road waiting for a truck to go, sometimes you can get one truck goes through the light and you're stuck because it just takes forever for that truck to get going. Now picture 8 or 12 of them lined up. What do the people do that live down on Pool Road and down Liberty? How on earth do they get onto I-20? So thank you for your time.
All right, thank you, sir. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak for or against this item? All right, seeing none, I will close the public hearing, and it will revert back to council and staff. Does anyone have any more questions for Ron? All right, if there are no more questions, I'll recognize Mr. Carter.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Mr. Mayor. I am the representative for that area, Ward 5, and it bothers me to have semi-trucks coming out onto Edge Road and no way to get them onto Liberty Road. It looks to me like we're creating a huge bottleneck, and it's going to affect all the citizens that live in Villa Rica, down Edge Road, down Pool Road. So my motion would be for rezoning RA-02-20, that it be denied.
All right, I have a motion to deny the rezoning, as Mr. Carter stated. Is there a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second to deny the rezoning. Is there any further discussion? All in favor? All opposed? All right, the motion to deny will carry 4-1. That rezoning is denied. All right, let's move on to C2. RA-01-21 and VA-03-21. Parcel number V02-007-00212, Highway 61 and 101 at Leggett Drive. Rockhaven Homes LLC of Brookhaven has requested 4 variances and a public hearing. We'll conduct the public hearing shortly. All right, Ron, if you will briefly introduce this item.
Sure thing. Rockhaven Homes is applying for townhomes on this property. So they, if you recall, we did it was 2 applications in one. It was a rezoning application that was approved back in May at our last meeting. However, the variances were all tabled. This project has gone through the Planning Commission. It was approved 3-2. The applicant is here as well tonight, but just to clarify what these variances are, again, for the record, the applicant is looking at having a front yard setback variance for the interior streets. So that's right now we require 25-foot front yard setbacks, and they're proposing 20-foot front yard setbacks. We require 24-foot wide townhomes, and they're proposing 20-foot. The applicant is also attempting to reduce the building offset between buildings. So this is that push-pull that we were talking about previously. Our requirement is 20 feet, and they're proposing 5 feet. And lastly, the distance between buildings, which we did go over a little bit in the work session. So that's a sliding scale from 40 to 20, and they're proposing 20 feet, but that doesn't work with the floor plan. So the requirement for them would be 40 feet, and they want 20.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions for staff at this point? Mr. Young.
Ron, these variance requests have not changed from when they were tabled last meeting, 2 months ago.
That is correct,
Okay.
yes.
All right. Anyone else?
Yes.
All right, Ms. McPherson.
At the last meeting, there was some talk about trying to understand where they were coming from. their reasons for asking for the variances, because at the last meeting, we had no explanations. Did you get those explanations as to why they were requesting the variances, and can you tell me when you got them?
Yes, ma'am. So we received, it's 2 letters here. The first one that I received was actually June 21st, 2021, and then we received another one today. The one from June 21st was not dispersed because there was some errors inside that the applicant was looking to correct prior to they coming to the council again. And they wanted to correct their previous letter, the one from June 21st. And then, so we received one today that did correct that, specifically one of the variances, and I emailed that out to Elisa and Teresa, and they sent it on to you guys just before the work session meeting, I believe. But even with the new letter, the distance between buildings is still not correct. So they put in here 30 feet, so that actually should be a 40-foot separation that it would permit, or that our requirement is. So there was a little bit of a communication issue there, but regardless, their reasonings for applying for this relief is it's pretty wide, I guess broad, for lack of better terms, but it would cause a cascading effect of many different things as far as placement of the building. So if they were to do the push-pull fashion, for example, and they would, or actually have to abide by the 25-foot front yard setback, so that's 2 different variances, that would mess up the topography in the rear of some of the townhomes. Select buildings would be significantly shortened, especially with walls and things that they're looking to have in back of some of the townhomes because of the topography differences. So the applicant, they've also, as far as the separation is concerned, they've submitted, and I can just quickly read this to you. It's only a 1 line here. It says, their understanding is that the minimum separation permitted for townhome construction under the International Fire Code is 20 feet, and so they're requesting 20 feet. That was the issue, or that was the reasoning that I was given for the building offset. But the applicant and their attorney is here. They might be able to shed some more light on that for the council, but essentially it would just cause a cascading effect across the property as far as how they would like to have their units laid out.
Okay. Are there any other questions? All right, is the applicant present? Okay. If you would come forward, sir, and give us your name, and we'll hear from you.
I'm Joe Fowler from Douglasville, and I represent the applicant, and Brad is here if you want to come up. Now, let me just talk about these variances, if I may, and I'll explain what went on with respect to the letter with apologies for any confusion. First, if I may, talk about the 20-foot stagger on the fronts of the buildings. We have a site plan that you can see, but essentially what's happening is when there's a building of 5 or 6 units here, there's a requirement under your ordinance that the next building be 20 feet set back from that building, and then they move in and out along the frontage of the property. Brad will show you that diagram, and we've got some site plans that we can hand out if that's okay.
Sure, go ahead.
As he's doing that, let me just indicate that, I'll wait while he's doing that. Requiring the townhomes to be set back building by 20 feet results in a stormwater drainage problem along the properties. Generally speaking, for purposes of stormwater control around the building, swales are constructed into the topography adjoining the townhomes, and the staggering of those homes requires the swales to be constructed essentially in a snake-like fashion along the landscaping. We believe that is both an aesthetic and a maintenance issue that was not anticipated when the ordinance was changed to require the staggering 20 feet back and forth. Plus, what happens with respect to that, as you see on that drawing, requiring the 20-foot stagger will result in every other building having a collection of 40-foot driveways. We believe that's not only aesthetically displeasing, but it's not consistent with the type of development that the city may want there. Our request is that the setback, the 20-foot setback be reduced to a 5-foot staggering. That is every other building 5 feet. And it's his intention with those that are set back 5 feet to do an additional 2 feet just to show within each of the buildings various staggering so that it's not just flat fronts across the building. That doesn't make good sense. Brad can explain that perhaps better than I can. With respect to the 40-foot distance between the townhomes, we started talking about that when I wrote the letter back in June. I mistakenly thought that the ordinance with respect to the difference between the 40-foot setback between the buildings was changed so that instead of being 40, it was now 20. I was mistaken about that. Instead, the ordinance was tweaked to say that if you have no openings whatsoever, that is no windows on the side of these units, it can be 20 feet. If you have a window that opens up to a bedroom, then it can be 30 feet. It cannot be anything other than 40 feet. If it's not a bedroom, but instead a laundry room or a bathroom, or if it's used as a community or group meeting room or for similar purpose, it can be 30 feet. 20 feet if there are no windows, 30 feet if it's laundry, utility, or a community or group meeting room. Otherwise, it's 40. It was confusing on my part. I talked with Ron a number of times about it. I tried to clarify that yesterday. Actually, I sent it this morning. We were working on it over the weekend. The National Fire Code requires 20-foot separation from the buildings, which actually is the nature of our request. With respect to the 24-foot widths, in November of 2020, of course, the city mandated that the townhomes be a minimum of 24 feet in width. At that time, Rockhaven had already begun to meet with the city. Actually, it had begun in August of that year and designed based on the ordinance as it was in effect at that point. The request is that the city grant the variance based on the ordinance as it existed at the time we started our deliberations for the site. That is not a legal requirement. We would have to have had a building permit granted under the ordinance to have vested grandfather rights under the old code. But our request is that it be adjusted based on the fact that that's what it was at that time, that we began working with the city. Let me note this. It might be argued that what the developer is simply trying to do by reducing from 24 to 20 is to get some sort of economic benefit by increasing his yield. And let me just point out, you may remember from the meeting back in May, this project has 34% open space rather than the required 12%. Under the SFA ordinance, there could be a total of 379 townhomes. This site calls for 210 units. If you look at that site, we could modify the park area up at the top and put more units there. We just don't want to do that. The request is to build the design one-car homes that we showed you in the meeting from last May, and I'm sure you remember that. Now finally, there's a 25-foot setback from the right-of-way that's required by your code. The ordinance we seek to vary in order to request the setback reduction by a total of 5 feet, that is down to 20 feet, for every other building. Plus there will be an additional internal offset, as I mentioned, of the 2 feet. This property falls somewhat significantly from back to front. So if you look at the bottom of that drawing and go toward the top, you'll be going east. It falls topographically from the back to the front. So if you look carefully at that, between the buildings, the backs of the buildings that front on the two roads, there's going to have to be a retaining wall constructed through there. If we don't get this variance on the 25-foot setback, that retaining wall is going to have to manipulate back and forth because of the way the property falls back to front. Based on that, Mr. Mayor, we would request those 4 changes. Brad can address the issues specifically, and we have an engineer here if there are questions for him.
Okay, thank you,
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Fowler. Would you like to say anything before I Okay. Council, does anyone have any questions for the applicant? All right. If there are no questions for the applicant, I will call staff back up. Are there any questions for staff at this point before I open this up for a public hearing?
Ron, question for you. Back in August of 2020, did no one tell the applicant that we were in the process of amending our zoning ordinance?
I don't recall. I really don't.
But we had been working on our zoning ordinance for at least
it was
a year. So, next question. I'm looking through the letters that Mr. Fowler's office sent, and this is the first time I believe I heard about a retaining wall being an issue. Did you recall? Am I missing something?
We had a conversation about a retaining wall. What was that? About last week. We had that conversation last week. That's when first time I heard about the retaining wall issue. So.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just looking through the letters again, and I don't see any reference to a retaining wall issue. So, thank you, Ron.
Okay. Ms. McPherson.
In regards to the stormwater runoff and where the drainage would go and everything, do you have either an agreement or a rebuttal to what was said about what would be required if they staggered the buildings and how that stormwater would run off? Any
don't.
comments on that?
Being that, and I'm not sure how much engineering has been done on the property as of yet, but I don't have anything to that effect. But we essentially have gone off of what the applicant has indicated as far as that is concerned, as far as the water runoff, as far as the retaining wall, or most of the items that you just heard. So we don't have any documentation or anything like that to back that claim up, if you will.
Okay. Any other questions? All right. Let me do the public hearing. So at this time, we're going to have a public hearing. If you are here to speak for or against this item, I'm going to ask you to come up, give us your name and address for the record, and I'll give you 3 minutes to speak. Hello, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Jeff Matthews, Villa Rica, Georgia. I don't know if I can say it all in 3 minutes, but we can certainly talk about a subject near and dear to everyone's heart, and that's money, economics. This development, and we've waited a long time, we've owned this piece of property for a long time, over 30 years, and we've been waiting on a quality development. And this development will generate over $1.1 million in sewer and water tap fees. We've been going up on sewer and water rates around for a long time, justifiably so, but this is a tremendous opportunity to generate money for the city coffers. These folks are going to build nice homes, they're going to have an HOA, they're not going to be anything, and I can't comment on runoff, and if you want to talk about coefficients of runoff and variability, I'm not your guy, but they've got an engineer that will work this out. And I think that when you get in a comprehensive plan and you start getting down in the weeds and trying to figure out where the retaining wall is going to go, I don't think that's the proper point here. You've got city staff that can work that out. And I'll tell you one quick thing, and I don't know how much reading you do, but I read everything from a chewing gum wrapper to Revelation. So I was reading the other day about Mike Tyson. You never think about him producing some philosophical treatise, but Mike Tyson was being interviewed, and the young man reporter was asking about an upcoming fight. And he says, well, you know, your opponent is going to do this. And I don't remember who the opponent was. I just remember that he bit Evander Holyfield's ear off. So I wouldn't get in the ring with him. But the young reporter asked him, says, what's your fight plan? Here's what your opponent does. He moves laterally. And Mike Tyson said, and it's something that applies, and it's really pretty smart. He said, we all got a fight plan. and it works real good till you get punched in the mouth. And that is true with a comprehensive plan or a building plan until you run across something. So from my standpoint, obviously, yes, I'd like to get paid selling the land, but I just know this is a good opportunity. What would happen if y'all came up and reduced water and sewer rates one day? Wouldn't that be something? So I'd just like to say that these variances are not evil. They're an opportunity. Thanks a lot.
All right,
And
thank
stay
you,
away
sir.
from Mike Tyson.
Sure, sure. All right, is there anyone else here who would like to speak for or against this? Yes, sir.
My name's Dr. Steve Woodall. We're part of a family partnership, and I was not aware of this, but Leslie just hit something that affects us possibly. Well, there's 9 acres of land that's already been taken over by water that's owned by this family partnership on the west side of that road. We would like to know how you're gonna control the water, because we don't need any more water coming down on that property, because it's already pretty much absorbed and taken on. It used to be something we could bush hog, and now it's been pretty well condemned. And it's just an area now that's turned into a wetland, but that's a consideration that needs to be really looked into to control it, because the water in the past went towards the railroad track, and they even dug it out, and they've had, the people come out to concern it as whether or not it's a wetland or not. But it's now been turned over, but I mean, it's just an area that could just turn into a real, y'all got to develop or run the pipe to the creek to get the water away from the property and keep more water from coming in up there, but that's just a consideration. So, I'm not saying anything pro or con about the project. I can see why it could be nice, but the water's a problem, okay?
All right, thank you, sir. Let me just clarify, though. Are you talking about the land back behind the apartments, though, between City Hall and between the apartments, or is there another piece that I'm missing?
talking about between Leggett and the railroad track.
Okay, all right,
Right
that's a
there
little closer.
on the left.
All right, thank you. I wanted to understand that. All right, is there anybody else who would like to speak for or against this item? All right, seeing no other takers, I'll close the public hearing, and I'll revert back to staff, and I'll give the applicant an opportunity to speak.
Mayor, Council, Brad Hughes, Rockhaven Homes, 2021 Flightway Drive, Chamblee, Georgia. So to start with your concern, we've done a wetland study. We've done a stream delineation study that'll be submitted to staff during the LDP process. So we've studied the stream, upstream, downstream. That's part of what we've had to do during the design phase of it. So that is already been studied, and we understand what needs to happen. And that's part of the reason I'm pushing back so hard in requesting the variance on this 20-foot offset between buildings. And I've said from day one, the main reason for that is because of the topo and the grading between the buildings. And I handed y'all the site plan that I have in my hand that shows the 20-foot offset between buildings. And if you have one building, set back, 20 feet, and the next building 20 feet back, 40 feet, to get the water, to run around, some of them have to drain to the front, to the street, into the catch basins, into the detention pond. Others, will drain to the back. But to get a constant drain in the rear yards, to have one building, 20 foot back versus another one, you're going to have there's really no way to get it, especially in these middle units, building 9 through 21. So this is almost an even break on the property. And if you have, it's about a 5 to 8 foot contour step down, right where this property line is, where we need to keep that. So you can see in building 12, if we gotta push that back 40 feet, and have a 40-foot driveway plus our units, the back patios are gonna be right on top of that retaining wall. You're gonna have no rear yard at all. Not only is it a safety concern, you're gonna literally walk out of your patio and look down, you're gonna be on top of a retaining wall, looking down 8 feet below you. And then also to have a 40-foot driveway, every other building, to me, it's just, from an aesthetic standpoint, you have aesthetics, you have the topo, the drainage, it's just not a good look. And then also, I thought when we were before y'all in May that staff was revising and acknowledged that 40 feet between buildings was too big, and I thought they were revising it down to 20 feet to match the International Fire and International Building Code, which is 20 feet, which is, standard, pretty much in every other jurisdiction for townhomes. And, through the different meetings we've had with Ron, it's kind of hard to explain, that without having the topo. But the biggest issue here, on the 20-foot offset and the 40 feet between buildings is the topo. That's going to, cause a major issue between the buildings.
Okay. Council, does anybody have any questions for the applicant here? Okay.
Yes.
Ms. McPherson.
So this is designed for single vehicle. See, that's something I do understand. Stormwater, some of the other stuff that's in the weeds, I have to rely on professional staff or take your word for, what you know about it, and I'm willing to do that. But I do understand something about driving through neighborhoods and seeing things that don't have adequate driveways. So what you're proposing allows for a single car?
It'll be a single car in the garage and yes, one in the driveway.
That assumes they park in the garage. You got to realize, right, when it comes down to the way people really live and the number of vehicles. What's the bedroom size?
They're 3 bedrooms, between 2 and 3 bedrooms, but most of them are 3-2.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Are there any other questions for the applicant? Okay. Mr. Fowler, you want to say something else?
Just one quick thing. In my letter to Ron dated June 21st, I did point out the issue about the retaining wall. Mr. Muttman had mentioned that a moment ago, and it's in that June 21st letter. We did find that out shortly after the request for variances was first made.
Okay. All right. Any questions for Mr. Fowler or the applicant? All right. Thank you, Ron. All right. Are there any questions for staff? Let me just ask you, Bobby, with regard to this retaining wall and this runoff issue, is this an issue that would be resolved prior to the LDP, or because this seems to me like it's more of a planning and in the weeds issue than it would be to be considered right here?
A lot of these issues.
Okay, yeah, hold on. First, I can't hear you for the train, and second, I'll give you this. It's on. All right, go ahead.
Mayor, a lot of the runoff issues and retaining walls are not usually addressed at the planning stage, at the zoning stage. It's not until the engineer gets into the actual site design that they take care of this kind of stuff.
Okay.
So, but they've gone far enough, obviously, ahead looking at the site that they've uncovered there's going to be problems with retaining walls and trying to get stormwater out. But we don't usually see that on a concept.
Okay, and it sounds like they're making plans for that this early as well. So, all right, council, are there any other questions for staff or anybody here?
Ron, have you,
Mr.
you recommended denial, is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
All right. Did you hear anything tonight from the applicant or anyone else that would cause you to reconsider your recommendation for denial?
No, I have not.
Okay. All right, that's it. Thank you.
Okay, are there any other questions for staff?
Maybe just a comment, because I know you may not think some of us actually can lose sleep over these sort of things, but this affects people's life. It affects businesses, affects the community. This is weighty stuff to handle. I sympathize with the builders, developers a lot of times trying to jump through all the hoops that we can put up for you. And I realize sometimes government can get overregulated and this and that. And yet at the same time, I've got at least 3 staff members that are not comfortable with the project for various reasons that we've discussed. And so I just wanted, I guess, make clear that's why sometimes we're a little conflicted on some of this, trying to figure it out and the variances and what the requirements are. And, you know, how to decide on something like this, because y'all have invested money. You know, you've put time and effort into this, and we have the ability to say no. And that may be what'll happen. But I want you to understand that I, for one, certainly don't take it lightly. I have some issues with it. Mr. Fowler, you mentioned we have professional staff. You're absolutely right, and we've got several that have concerns. And so I'm trying to weigh both of those myself, and I'm sure some of the other people are as well.
All right, Mr. Barber.
Is everybody done?
Yeah, well, I don't know.
All right. So, Ron, are we still, we're still entertaining 4 variance requests, is that true?
That is the only thing that we're entertaining tonight. The rezoning was passed in May.
Right.
That's correct.
4 variance requests.
4.
So, I've said this before in a meeting, I think, but I'll say it again. When Ron does the staff report for these things, he does not have my permission to recommend based on how he feels that day, or whether he likes the ordinance, or whether he likes the builder, or whether he likes the engineer, or any of that. His job is to look at the plan, look at the ordinance, and consequently, he's going to recommend denial just all the time, right, on a variance. Because his job is to tell y'all what y'all have said, which is, here's the ordinance. And so by definition, since the builder or developer is asking for a variance, he's opposed to it, right? Because he doesn't have the latitude that you have. You have the latitude to say, yeah, this is our ordinance, but in this case, allowing a variance makes sense, right? Because we're going to get something in return that's better than the cost of the variance. I mean, at least that's how I view this. So the one that I in particular have a hard time with is the offset of the buildings to 20 feet. I just don't get it. So if y'all vary that, allow that variance to 5 feet, I'm not losing any sleep. And you've heard the developer builder tell you what that's going to do. It basically just screws the project up, right? I mean, it just physically doesn't work to push every other building back 20 feet. So for me personally, I'm not doing this. Y'all are voting. I say you approve that variance. As far as the width of the buildings, if we build a 20-foot building, that's not as good as a 24-foot building. We agree on that? Rather have a 24-foot building? So maybe you stick with that one. But if you want to vary that, that's y'all's prerogative, right? If you think you're going to get a development out of this that's still a significant addition to the community, and that there's going to be a market for a 20-foot 3-2. Now, Mayor, you're the resident expert, so I would hope you would have some special insight into what a 20-foot 3-2 townhome is, right? Because you know more about that than all of us put together, I suspect, so maybe you can weigh in on that one. but I'm not losing sleep if y'all approve that. I don't think. Then you get to the next one about the front yard setbacks. I don't know, did Brad, did you even talk about that? Did I miss that?
Yeah, so I may have missed that, and if I did, I apologize. It is, I guess that variance is for every other building, since we're proposing a 5-foot offset. Half the buildings will be at the required 25-foot setback. And the reason to ask for the other half to be at 20 feet, again, is for the grading and the topo and the drainage, instead of having them at all of them at 25 feet and then some of them at 30 feet. It doesn't seem like much, but when you're, battling for, the best, backyards, rear yards, to sell, we really do need that. That's really for every other building.
Okay.
All right, you only got one more, and that's the separation between buildings. So what Rock Haven is telling you is that 20 foot's the International Building Code standard. And what we've done is put something in our ordinance that starts this negotiation process at 40 feet. And what we've done as a trade-off is said that we're willing to approve a narrower separation based on the number of windows on those exterior walls. So do you like that? I mean, just because it's in your ordinance and you approved it a year ago doesn't mean you like it, or that now that you are coming face to face with it, that you think it's a good idea. Because I can tell you that pretty soon Jim Chapman's going to roll in here and we're going to have this same conversation about the townhomes at First Baptist. And then Starlight's going to come in here and we're going to have the same, isn't that their name? Yes, sir. We're going to have that conversation about the townhomes behind Holiday Inn Express. And who am I missing? Then there's another one behind the Dairy Queen that's a possibility, that's also Jeff's land. And we're going to have this conversation again because all these guys are accustomed to 20-foot separations. So there you go. I mean, I don't know what you want to do with that. Matthew, you're the resident P&Z expert, and I think if you don't speak up and tell everybody from your, experience that you're making them decide about stuff that they just don't have your background with.
I think for a variance, in order to get approval from staff, there has to be a showing of a hardship. And so what I'm asking Ron was, tonight, have you heard anything to cause you to reconsider your recommendation for denial? He has not heard a hardship presentation that would cause the recommendation for denial, at least in his professional expert opinion.
And I've seen a lot of recommendations for approval of a variance with conditions from staff, so that does happen.
Not so much now, though. I mean, Ron and I and Bobby and Chris are all sitting and talking about this stuff. And what comes from staff is coming from Ron and Chris primarily, right? And I'm letting them run that. That's their job. But they're not looking at this from an aesthetic standpoint or even topo or water, because Bobby's going to deal with all that when we get to that point, right? But I don't want to deny all this stuff, have the builder walk away. I mean, I would rather table this or do something and let all this come back after we have a chance to talk about it offline or something, because I just think that denying these 4 variants kills the deal.
And I'm concerned that it seemed to me that in May when we took this up, it seemed pretty clear in here that this jagging these buildings was not practical. It wasn't practical. It didn't feel like the correct requirement, and I thought that Chris had said that we were already looking at modifying that in this new zoning ordinance. So I expected to see that come back and really be a non-issue here. I have a real problem denying that. That seems, it doesn't even make good sense to me. I understand your job. I understand that you're looking at this zoning ordinance and you are making recommendation based on what it tells you to do. This has, I don't blame you in any way. But I think Matthew's correct too, that you have the ability to recommend that this council approve these variances if you find a hardship, if you find a reason to do that. But I have to say, from my point of view, a hardship is not necessary for at least that particular variance. So I struggle with that. To be honest with you, there's at least 2 of these that I think shouldn't even be a variance request. They should have already been decided at the staff level, but the zoning ordinance doesn't allow for that. So I do think that we should be looking at granting those, and if we're not prepared to do that in the interest of this development and of a fair shake to this applicant, we should table it at the very least. So we're going to take these one at a time, unless somebody wants to table this whole item, then we'll see if we can maybe approve some with modifications or deny some. Or does anybody have any input before I
make a motion to table the 4 variances until the next meeting.
I'll second that.
Okay, I'll do that. All right, so I have a motion to table this item until the August council meeting. I want there to be a lot of discussion to get this stuff fixed. This makes no sense to come in here and do this again, and these people keep coming back. Is there any further discussion? All right, all in favor? It's unanimous. We'll table this item to the next meeting. Thank you. All right. It's exhausting. Let's move on to C3, VA-07-21. Let me give you all a chance to get out. All right. C3 VA-07-21, parcel number 0145 025 0015, 0145 025 0037, and 0145 025 0014. Highway 78, variance request for East-West Express. We'll also have a public hearing on this item. Ron, will you briefly present this item?
Absolutely. Joseph Kanjemi of Villa Rica, he's with East-West Express, is applying for a variance from a requirement that we have in our zoning ordinance to supply, or I believe our development ordinance, to supply parking on a hard, dust-free surface in favor of providing gravel for a 12-acre truck parking lot. So it would be 12 acres that would be gravelled. In lieu of, I believe actually the entire site is about 33 acres or so. So that would be in lieu of asphalt or cement or any other dust-free surface. And that variance is going to be from section 7.02, subsection 5. So the applicant has submitted some reasonings as to why they need that request, or they need that to be granted the request. And it's because of the maintenance of maintaining a 12-acre truck parking facility and having trucks on cement that can weigh up to 80,000 pounds will ultimately crush the cement over short amounts of time, according to the applicant. So they're proposing non-decorative gravel instead.
Okay. Council, do you have any questions for staff before we do a public hearing?
Ron.
Mr. Young.
I've run a lot of warehouses, and a typical truck parking lot is 5 inches of concrete, and 80,000-pound trucks don't have a problem with it. Now, I've also had warehouses where the parking lot was asphalt, but they had concrete strips for the landing legs. And you have to design that based on how you're going to park your stuff, but it's possible because the asphalt will deform in summer heat under the pressure of the lane legs. This talks about consistent maintenance hardship, which gravel moves. And trucks turn sharp turns to back into parking spaces, which on gravel, you can't even paint the parking spaces. So how is gravel less of a consistent maintenance hardship?
Yeah, I actually brought that point forward also in the staff report when, and I'm sure we have all in this room have been in a parking lot where it's gravel, and just after a rain, you see a million puddles throughout the gravel parking lot, and gravel can typically become compacted very quickly and under weight, and especially such extreme weight. So I believe that there's more than likely going to be a significant maintenance problem just with gravel alone. Just the replacement of gravel on a 12-acre site there's a cost to that as well, and it would be much more frequently, I would imagine, than having a hard dustless surface. So, the applicant is here tonight to kind of further explain what their reasonings are.
Okay. Are there any other questions for staff, though? All right. Is the applicant here? All right. Let the applicant come up and speak. And like I said earlier, you can give a presentation, talk, whatever you want to do, and then we'll see about some questions.
Okay, Richard Canjemi, 423 Edge Road, Villa Rica. And we have a few posters here to look at. Anyway, a little bit about East West Express. First of all, I started East West Express. I'm the founder in 1985 with 2 rigs, and came to Villa Rica in '88. I was up to 10 rigs at that time. Fast forward to 2015, and we have 100 rigs. 2015. That's why I bought this property, which is 33 acres. We needed parking. So in 2019, we had a plan approved for the shop. We were at 125 rigs. This is the plan that we have approved. If everyone wants to take a look at it. Got it? Yeah, just walk through it so everybody can see it. Just take a close look. This is not the current plan, but this is what was approved back 2 years ago.
Did you submit a version of this to the city?
That was approved by the city.
Okay, but I mean, do we have it in this packet?
No, we don't.
Because I'm not going to be able to read that as you just walk by.
Bring it to him again.
I'm not going to read the whole thing anyway.
You can keep it at your desk.
All right, go ahead. Anybody else?
Thank
wanna
you.
hold this? Just hold it up where they can see it. All right.
Okay, fast forward now to 2021. Evidently, the company we were experiencing a pretty rapid growth, especially during the pandemic that we had. We're a refrigerated trucking company, so we haul food, and we're an essential company, for sure. As we all found out, everybody needs food from their grocery stores. We deliver there, right here in Villa Rica, and the entire state of Georgia in the southeast. So we're an essential company again. We needed more parking. My original facility that I purchased on 57 Daniel Street, we had outgrown it 6 years ago. Okay, it's a gravel lot. We've been operating there for 33 years. Never had a problem with it. On Edge Road, we have another gravel lot, which we had to use for our expansion because we were delayed in trying to get this project going. This project on Highway 78, or Veterans Memorial Highway, is being used right now as a parking lot. For the past 2 years, we have about 3 acres of gravel, which we inherited when I bought the property. So it's there. We've been using it to make sure that the gravel is basically not disturbed more than it needs to be. We have a skid steer on site to make sure that we smooth everything out once it gets disturbed, and that's just a regular maintenance item. So, in 2021, we redrew this site plan to have more parking. And then the ordinance changed in Villa Rica. I believe it was this year that we have hard surface parking. Now, that's a change. I was halfway through my project and the rules changed. This is what we have right now. This is and I'll tell you what this looks like. This is our parking area that's already gravel, which I inherited. This is the proposed area over here. This is the concrete driveway, which we're going to build, and a concrete go around with the shop. This is the green is where we're going to hydrant seed things. Okay?
Alyssa, will you give him that handheld mic?
Oh, sorry about that. Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Uh-oh.
Is it on? Yeah. Good. Okay. So the green, the light green here is the hydro-seeded area. The dark green is where we have trees around the entire property. It's been my opinion that the last 2 years that we've been parking trucks there, we have not seen any dust, which is the intent of the ordinance, getting out of the area. It's staying on my property. The trees actually help to keep it there. But the speed limit that I've imposed upon our drivers is 5 miles an hour. So if you're driving down the road at 25 or 50 miles an hour on gravel, dirt, it's going to fly all over the place. At 5 miles an hour, you have next to nothing. And whatever there is, it's captured within this area. The initial intent of the whole project was to keep our, the feasibility study we had was to use gravel instead of concrete or asphalt. And by the way, we didn't say anything about concrete. It was asphalt that we were talking about that would cause problems with 80,000 pounds in the summer heat. It's going to be a problem. Anyway, so for the past 33 years, and then the past 2 years, on the gravel lots we had in Villa Rica, we've been operating without a problem. I don't think there's been any complaints by the city or anybody else complaining in the audience that we have a problem. Now these jobs that, for a moment, the jobs that we have are truck driving jobs. These jobs pay $70,000 a year, so they're pretty nice jobs to have. Most of these people live in the area, many do. So we would want to improve the coffers of the city of Villa Rica by having more people move in the area, earning significant, nice wages. Any questions at this point?
Okay. Are you finished presenting what you want to present?
Do you have anything to say? One more comment. I'll hold this. All right, we did cover everything.
All right, no problem. All right, counsel, do you have any questions for the applicant? Ms. McPherson?
I think you may have answered my first one, which had to do with your maintenance on your current gravel surface. Is that continuous? It holds up well?
Yes, we have no problems. Been doing it for 33 years.
When the trucks come in, are they loaded or empty?
Some of each.
Okay, so both. So you'll have some that are especially weighty?
They're
Others-
80,000 pounds.
Okay.
We always haul maximum loads.
And any idea on the amount of trips going in and out, say on a daily basis?
Yes. We probably have 25 trips. Now, a little side point is, a little early in the evening, we talked about Edge Road. When I take these trucks off of Edge Road and put them on Highway 78, there's that much less traffic to go down Edge Road, less of a need for this problem that we have. Just a side point.
And I'm trying to remember if this was specifically for you. Did you clear cut a larger area than originally planned?
Yes, I did.
You changed your plans to some degree?
Yes, I did.
Okay. But there's still a pretty good, I actually drove on the property yesterday, just try to take a
Great.
look, drive to the back and front, look at
Yes.
where the, where the buffer was of the trees and that sort of thing. Okay, I think that's all I had for you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Mr. Carter?
Do you plan to move your total operation off of Edge Road and off of Daniel down to this location?
The Edge Road operation will be completely done away with. So yes, I'm gonna close the gravel lot on Edge Road, for sure. The 57 Daniel Street, I'm taking 98% of the trucks away, and they're gonna be on Highway 78. The reason I'm keeping 57 Daniel Street open is just for a heavy repair shop. There might be a couple of trucks, 2 or 3 trucks a week going in to get heavy repairs done. But all the normal operation is gonna be on Highway 78.
And the gravel part, whenever these trucks are on the gravel, they don't pick up gravel in the tires and sling it out when they get on the highway?
Well, there's always going to be some of that. However, when we're making our way out over here, we have everything's on concrete here. So by the time we go through our wash bay and wash the trucks out, go back on the concrete and leave, not really. We won't have that problem.
Okay. All right. Anyone else? All right. No more questions for the applicant. All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
We will, I will now open this up for a public hearing. Is there, so just like earlier, is there anybody here who wants to speak for or against this item? Come forward now, and I'll give you 3 minutes to speak. Give us your name and address for the record. All right. Seeing no one, I will close the public hearing, and I'll revert back to staff. Bobby, do you have anything you want to add?
Mayor, I just want to clarify one thing. Even under the old UDC ordinance, off-street parking required a hard surface. Even though we've got lots of areas in the industrial park that have gravel, the rule has always been there for a long time.
Okay.
So what are you saying? Are you saying we've always had the rule, but we allowed it or ignored it out in the industrial?
We didn't allow it. It was allowed.
Okay. Okay.
But that rule has been in place for a long time.
Have you been out on any of those lots with the gravel?
Oh, yes, ma'am.
What do they look like?
They maintain them. They keep them up. Dust control is the issue. And I'll say this, and I'm not a transportation engineer, I'm a water resource engineer. From a water quality and stormwater perspective, gravel is better for the environment. Just saying. But the rule has been in place for a long time.
Okay. All right. Are there, hold on a second, Bobby and Ron. Are there any more questions for staff? Well, hold on. Are there any more questions for staff?
Actually, I guess it
Mr.
should have
Carter.
been directed to him, but you brought up the dust control problem. Do we anticipate any kind of dust problems with this gravel out here?
Well, there are remediation measures to control the dust. There's a brine solution that counties use when they have lots of gravel roads to keep the dust down. So that is treatable.
Okay, are we requiring that on this operation?
If we're not right now, but as he pointed out, part of that gravel was a holdover. Either Colonial Pipeline or the Cross Country Power Lines used that 30 acres for a staging area years ago, hence the gravel that was already on the site. That's where that gravel came from.
Okay.
But we're not asking them to treat that because it's not an issue. We've had a stop work order on the site for, I don't know, 3-4 months because of the extra clearing. They had to revise their drawings to match what they did. So nothing's going on over there right now except for trying to get their plans resubmitted and get everything reapproved to open the site back up. And I can't approve those final drawings until this variance is, ruled on.
Okay. Who are you?
I just want to know if I could speak for a minute regarding the gravel. I'm a civil engineer.
He's the engineer that designed the
For
project.
the applicant?
Yes.
For the, okay, yep. Come on up.
Mike Forlaw, Douglasville, Georgia. Civil engineer for the project. Obviously, I want to see this get approved. I want to see the project happen, but just kind of a more general statement about gravel lots. I've done many of these. I think the primary concern may be dust control. I'm not exactly sure exactly why it's an ordinance or why it's frowned upon so much, but I will say we've done a lot of these, a lot of them under variances. You know, a lot of cities and counties require hardened surface. But there's been no negative feedback. We've seen them work well. And what Bobby said from an environmental standpoint is absolutely true. From a water quality and runoff reduction and detention, those are the three trigger words that you get right now in the Georgia Stormwater Management Manual. Gravel is far better than a hardened surface when you're talking about stormwater. It's the project. The gravel definitely is an advantage from that standpoint, and I know that's a concern as well. You know, that deals directly with downstream flooding, quality of water downstream, and all those kind of things. So that is definitely a pro to going with the gravel when you have a large site like this. So just wanted to throw that out there. Thank you.
Okay, all right, I appreciate that. All right, are there any more questions for staff?
Yes.
All right, Ms. McPherson.
And Bobby, I don't know, you or Ron, I know you didn't make the rule. We didn't make the rule. The rule's there, okay? Would you say, and if you can't answer this, just say so, would you say that the heart of that type of ordinance or rule is so that when you're driving down the street, McDonald's has a paved driveway, and the grocery store, or a parking lot, and the grocery store has a paved parking lot, and the car parts place over there, but that maybe it wasn't exactly designed for when you're paving or concreting 12 acres?
Obviously, a tractor-trailer lot is in a category all its own as far as size and maneuverability and what you do with it. Pretty much, from looking at his plan, most everything is going to be in the back. You're not going to see it much of anything from the front, especially he's probably 600 feet off the road. It's a good idea to have off-street parking, hard surface. And you know, I threw the stormwater thing in there because that's a requirement, big requirement that we have to deal with as a city. But the gravel is an alternate choice for that. Concrete for a hard surface obviously would be better because, as Mr. Young says, an 80,000-pound truck on reinforced 6-inch solid concrete, it's not going to have much of an effect with it. But the cost for that on 12 acres, you know, you can imagine. But yeah, we have lots of areas that in the industrial park. Now this is a commercial zoning, right, Ron? This is a commercial zoning, not an industrial zoning, so they're a little bit different. But this particular facility is allowed in C2. So that being said, I don't know if I answered your question. I mean, it's typical to drive past it. Lots of areas where you've got paved lots, paved driveways. It's just a common occurrence. And this one will be the same. Paved going in, paved around the building. But most of the area that's going to be truck parking is going to be behind the facility, for what it's worth.
I just know sometimes with things like this, they're kind of cookie cutter and everything doesn't fit in the cookie cutter. And I guess that's why we have some flexibility with variances.
This particular site is 33 acres, and it's a large site. I mean, it's kind of tucked away, it's kind of hidden. It's not, you don't have residential properties right up against it. More typical of an industrial zoning. But in this case, it's isolated enough, if the council would see fit, you know, it's a workable thing. And besides, it's, you know, when you have leaking diesel trucks on asphalt, the first flush of a storm, that leak, that oil and hydraulic fluid goes right into your pond, right into your stream.
Oh, you used to could see it when you're going down the road and heavy rain come in,
You
you'd
can
be
see
by a
the
gas
sheen. You can see
station and
the
you
sheen.
could see the slick
At
coming right off.
At
going
least
in
with
the-
this, you got the gravel will help trap that. But, you know, and I almost got up a few minutes ago with the other case when we were talking about the Rockhaven Homes thing. And Tom's right, you know, staff, we chain ourselves to that ordinance. It is our Bible. No, you know, no blasphemy intended. We have to. I mean, but there are times when the big picture will outweigh what that ordinance says. And we got to do better at seeing that as a staff and saying something before we get to the podium.
Okay. So I know this is taking a while, but look, these things, everybody gets a fair hearing here, and that's why it's important to let these go. I know I typically run a tighter show, but it's important that everybody feel like they've been heard. So are there any more questions from council to staff? All right. So with that, I will entertain a motion.
I move to deny the variance request from Joseph Cagmeni of Villa Rica, Georgia, to supply gravel parking in lieu of parking on a hard, dust-free surface.
All right, I have a motion from Mr. Young to deny the variance request from Joseph Kanjemi to supply gravel parking in favor of asphalt parking on the site.
I didn't say asphalt. In lieu of
Gravel,
parking.
I'm sorry.
In gravel, in lieu of parking on a hard, dust-free surface.
So are you making a motion different from the motion in the?
Yes.
All right, we'll do it again.
I move to deny the variance request from Joseph Kangemi of Villa Rica, Georgia, to supply gravel parking in lieu of hard, dust-free surface.
All right, is there?
It could be asphalt or
Is there a
concrete.
second? Let me do that first because I don't even understand the motion. Is there a second?
I get it.
There is a second. All right, please explain that motion to me.
The motion as presented in the cover sheet says asphalt. It doesn't have to be asphalt. It could be concrete. It just has to be hard, dust-free surface. Now, Mr. Kangemi is correct in stating that asphalt by itself is improper in a truck parking, but if you put in concrete strips for the landing legs, that works. I've done that. I had a 20-year-old building in Chicago that we did that.
I think why I'm confused, and help me out here, is there is a variance request on the table. Are we going to, I don't know how you change the variance request in a motion to deny.
The variance request was for gravel. I don't know where the asphalt came from.
Are you following me?
Yeah, I understand you, and I don't know the request. The variance request itself said nothing about asphalt at all, so I'm not sure that should have ever been in the proposed motion. I think you can just leave it at I move to deny the variance request from Joseph Kanjemi of Villa Rica, Georgia.
Okay. Is that, do you?
To supply gravel park.
Okay.
That's an acceptable modification.
Okay, all right, that is clearer to me. Do you still second that?
Yes.
All right, so I have a motion to deny the variance request from Joseph Kanjemi of Villa Rica, and I have a second. Is there further discussion? All right, all in favor? I knew it. All right, all opposed? Is she still in the lobby?
Guess what, Mr. Mayor? It's your first one.
I think the council somehow enjoying this.
Now, we had a mayor that looked forward to getting these kind of tie votes at one time.
Not this one.
He's the one sitting out in the audience.
Is that him?
That's him.
Sitting in the audience enjoying it. So let me, I mean, one of the cool things about getting to sit here, those you get to talk. So This is not the easiest of these, because I have to tell you, I am not in favor of all this truck parking so close to downtown, to be honest with you. One of the concerns that we would certainly have here is with dust. I live over in that area, and I am there, and I don't see a lot of dust over there. The way that you've laid this out with the, with the solid surface in the beginning and surrounding, and you putting the gravel where the trucks will park, and when Mr. Elliott discusses the oil or gas or anything that drips from these vehicles being absorbed rather than being allowed to run off into our water streams, those seem like mitigating factors to me. Therefore, I'll cast a vote what is the vote? I'm going to vote with those two people down there.
Yeah, you're voting no on the current motion.
All right, I'll vote no on the current motion. I'll allow.
Then somebody needs to make another motion.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll make a motion, Mr. Mayor.
You're going to do it again.
Okay.
All right, go ahead.
I'll make a motion to approve the variance request from Joseph Cangini of Villa Rica to supply gravel parking.
I second.
All right. I have a motion to approve the variance request from Joseph Cangemi to supply gravel parking. And I have a second. Is there any further discussion?
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
For staff, if possible. I know it's a little late.
Sure,
but-
go ahead.
Bobby, you previously mentioned some sort of brine mixture that some counties lay on their gravel areas to mitigate the dust, I suppose? Is that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Does our ordinances or development regulations code require that?
No, it doesn't, but we do have, dust control is a form of our nuisance ordinance.
Okay.
Yes.
So do you believe we'll need some specific requirement of them to use that brine, or do you believe that nuisance ordinance dust control would be sufficient?
They're one and the same. If
Okay.
if dust becomes an issue, they will be required to treat the gravel with brine.
Okay. Thank you.
Bob,
And believe it or not, that brine solution, I worked for Douglas County DOT, I managed their maintenance division for a year and a half, and we contracted with a company. We had 6 gravel roads in Douglas County, and 2 applications in 1 year took care of all the dust control. And it didn't matter if you were doing 50 miles an hour or 5 miles an hour. You just didn't have it.
Okay. But you believe that the nuisance ordinance with the dust control provision alone, without requiring specifically the mixture of the brine, is that correct? Is that
Yes, yes.
would be sufficient enough in this case?
If dust becomes an issue, then we will require them to mitigate that, and that is the best solution.
Okay. Thank you.
Bobby, do you have any experience in how much gravel trucks drag out of a gravel parking lot onto a public road, or sling it other cars on the roads?
No, sir, I don't. Mm-mm.
But it does happen.
Yeah.
May I have one more question, Mayor?
Go ahead.
That actually reminds me, thank you, Michael. So a lot of the times when you have a gravel drive or gravel road, the developer has to put an apron, a concrete apron or something, in order to minimize or mitigate.
This driveway from
It is concrete, or not concrete, but asphalt. It's paved all the way to
it's
the
going
right
to
of
be
way.
paved all the way
Okay.
to the building, yes.
All right, thank you.
And I mentioned that.
Yes, you did.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mayor.
Would you like to speak again? No. You just showing me a sign? Okay. All right, I have a motion to approve the variance request from Joseph Cangemi of Villa Rica to supply gravel parking. I have a second. I'm just going to call the question. All in favor? Damn it. All opposed? Oh, well, all right, go ahead. All opposed. All right, I'll cast in favor. So I will approve the variance request from Joseph Cangemi of Villa Rica to supply gravel parking. Make the note. All right, moving on. Don't do this again. All right, C4, RA-04-21/VA-06-21. Parcel number V04-013-0001, 950 Dallas Road, Southwest, North Villa Rica, LLC of Atlanta, rezoning and variance request. There'll also be a public hearing on this item. Ron, will you briefly present this item?
Absolutely. 950 Dallas Road. The applicant is requesting a rezoning of a 2.71 acre vacant parcel. They're looking to go from single-family agricultural AG to commercial low-density C1. This would be for a proposed Dollar General store. And the applicant is also requesting 3 variances from our non-residential design guidelines or design standards section of the zoning ordinance. The applicant has met with Tom, myself, Bobby, Chris, and we've gone over this application initially when they came through throughout the doors. You know, the variances have, they were pretty, once I started going over this application and reviewing it, the variances kind of jumped out at me right away in this design guidelines section or design standards section, if you will. So 3 of them here, and I'll just outline them really quick. The offsets and projections section, so all of the sections of the building would need to have some types of offsets and projections that are a 2-foot push-pull, again, fashion, what we've kind of been talking about. And over in all intervals of the facade, not greater than 60 feet. So this was, of course, something that was self-imposed by the applicant. We had also storefront, ground floor retail shall be transparent for 75% of the total ground level facade, and they're not looking to do that. 9.04F section of the zoning ordinance was for architectural styles, materials, and colors of the front elevation, and blank windowless walls had to be, were prohibited along all the facades that are confronting a public way. Except for where a building confronts multiple streets. So they're not looking to, or they are proposing blank windowless walls along the public view from Harrell Road on that elevation wall. So when I took a look at it, it appeared that all of them were related to Dollar General's, their floor plans that they have. It seems like they have standard kind of boilerplate floor plans. This store is going to be a lot different than the Dollar General that we had that was constructed on Industrial Boulevard, and it's kind of a new model for the company that they're starting to roll out, where they would also have grocery items and home furnishings and things of that nature. So this would be kind of like their their top tier version of Dollar General. So it's not the standard product that they typically have, but the variances that they're asking for about, you know, for example, the windowless walls and things like that. They're proposing shelves in back of that area that would be bricked in a pattern for a windowless wall. So the choice here is, do we want to look at shelving units, the back of shelving units from the outside, or do we not, essentially? So like Tom said and like Bobby said earlier, I had to look at the ordinance and hold myself to the ordinance.
Okay, are there any questions for Ron at this stage?
I have a question.
All right, go ahead, Mr. Montana.
All right, so Ron, the proposal here is to go from ag to C1. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
And I see on the site plan that there is a proposed, or on the Dollar General's site plan, that there is a lighted monument sign as their proposed sign.
Let's see here. I'm sorry, I'm taking a look here. Yes. Mm-hmm.
And does the C1 zoning ordinance require monument signs?
Off the top of my head, because I didn't look at signage because it comes so much further down the line.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually, I'm not aware of that at the moment. I would have to review and see.
Just FYI, I've been reviewing the ordinances and I can't find anything specific on it, but I wanted to confirm just maybe in case you knew. Okay, thank you, sir.
All right, any other questions?
Yes.
I got
Ms. McPherson.
Go ahead.
One of the main concerns is how the traffic flow is going to work. And I want to know how comfortable we are with, they're going to exit off of Harrell and then come out, and that roundabout will be there. And I'm just, are y'all comfortable with that? I mean, I know we got some challenges no matter what. You can't avoid traffic totally.
I mean, this is a really high impact area as far as traffic is concerned. We just put in a traffic circle, obviously. So I don't know what the traffic flow is like now. I don't know if we've gone out or had any counters. Being that it's just so fresh, I couldn't imagine that we have yet right now.
Okay. Well, I expect with the bypass that there will be traffic that's removed. That's down the road still several years at least, but, you know, I'm trying to take that into consideration. I don't think I have probably a real problem with holding them to the, what is that on the back side? The projections, recesses. I'm not sure that that's that demanding of us to ask that. However, for us to want them to put windows on Harrell because it faces a road, that's why the ordinance says that. But to me, it's not practical that they don't put things on the walls on shelves. And I'd rather look at the false window, which they have proposed, or if they, I mentioned earlier, if they want to think about ahead of time, some sort of higher little window at the top or something. But I don't think what we're asking for is practical, or what our ordinance says we have to have with the windows there, because what store doesn't have shelves on the wall? And that's going to look real, I don't know how else to say it. That's going to look really crappy if you're looking at a window and you're looking at stock shelves.
Yeah.
I think the the false windows would be superior to that.
Well, I think the part of the issue here is the fact that this is a corner lot and there's a lot of visibility here, and there's no regulation that would reduce that for a corner lot, for example, because 75% is a lot of storefront area to be able to have all glass. For a lot of companies, that's simply not even feasible. I don't even recall the last time I went anywhere where it was 75% of the entire width of a facade was actual glass windows. I can't think of a single store. Now, I guess with that being said, I would like to see in our ordinance a section to where corner lots were reduced. That requirement would be reduced in some way, or it would be split up in a X amount of way.
The 75%.
Yes, the 75%, I'm sorry.
Okay.
So, for example, if it was 35% on one side and then 35% on the other side, it might kind of balance some things out or give an applicant a bit of a choice. But just because of the high visibility, that 75% may be very difficult for them to actually reach, just because it's a pretty large retail establishment in a sense. It has stock, and I'm not sure how they do their stocking and things like that, but I don't know if that's even feasible.
Well, I
at 75%.
appreciate that. I think it's important to have some opening just from a safety standpoint where everything in the front windows isn't obscured. There's a safety reason behind. Well, I appreciate you giving the 75%. I think we're all a little dollar store fatigued, and that's not against, we're just like, oh no, not another one. But they don't just place themselves where they think they're not going to make any money. Obviously, they think there's a market. On the positive side, they're going to have grocery items, fresh items, and it will be walkable from Walton Homes for the people there in that development to go over and get those type of items, and I consider that a positive.
Oh, yeah.
So, okay.
All right. Any other questions for staff? Mr. Carter?
Well, I got a question because in the previous ones we handled rezoning, and then we handled the variances. Are we going to do that again this way?
When we get down to it, I'll try to break them up like that.
Okay.
First, are there any more questions for staff? All right. Let me see if the applicant is present. All right. I'll let you come up and speak, sir. Give us your name and address.
My name's Jason Fritz. Address is 4151 Ashford Dunwoody Road, Atlanta, Georgia. As Ron mentioned, this is their Dollar General's new prototype. Just was introduced this year. It's their Dollar General Plus prototype. They've made a nationwide commitment to adding fresh produce to all of their stores. And to do that, they've added 38 coolers, which this new size allows for. It's about 1,500 square foot, larger than the one on Industrial Boulevard that our company built last year. So it's a lot more grocery centric, has all kinds of household items you want. And in terms of, I guess, answering some of the questions that the staff had, signage, we would be fine with going with the monument style sign, being conditioned on that. That's fine. That's what we did on Industrial Boulevard. I believe that's what's required. I could be wrong. But the signage would be monument. That is completely fine by us. Traffic flow. So you have two roundabouts going in, one at Pumpkintown, and then one further east where the new bypass is going. So everything in between those two those two roundabouts will be a median bound. So you can't cross over. So all those properties along the north side of Dallas Highway there, you wouldn't be able to take a left turn into it or a left turn out. So what we're proposing is our access would have a decel lane on Harrell Road, and we're proposing sharing our access with all those properties, to our east or to our right if you're looking at the property. So it's an advantage to those properties that are single family and face, a Dallas highway, which is 8,000 to 10,000 vehicles per day, essentially. So we are sharing access with all those properties, so that'll eliminate additional curb cuts that you need to have along Dallas highway there. Okay, so that's a benefit to them because if the person to the right of us decided to develop, an Aldi or a Lidl or something like that, they wouldn't be able to get left turns in or out of that property there. They would be right in, right out bound. Okay, so this is a benefit to all those properties as well. We are proposing a buffer along that right side where the residential home is. It's a 30-foot buffer. The reason we're asking for the variances is we're facing a home on that side, and then to the rear of us is ag zone property. So the projections, the projections off of the building, we just feel they're unnecessary. But if the council feels that they are, we can live with that. The windows, Councilwoman McPherson mentioned transom windows. We'd be fine with those. And higher up, the concern with those, any windows in a retail operation, is one, security, two, the daylight, the sunlight that comes through fades products over time. Now the turnover in a Dollar General, the products is pretty high, but there is that concern from Dollar General's part, so they would probably tint the windows anyway, just to prevent that light from getting in and fading the products. I'm trying to think what else. I guess just to summarize, we have the future land use plan calls for it to be the medical district it's also called the community crossroads in the future land use plan. And what we're proposing is C1 fits right in with that. It's a neighborhood retail use. And Dollar General targets these areas based on neighborhoods. So they know where their customers are shopping at the one that we just built on the northwest side of town. This is more the northeast side of town. I think it's about 2 miles away from the other store. They're targeting the people that live in and around that intersection there and all the traffic that goes by on a daily basis. They're not pulling people off of I-20 to go shop at a Dollar General. So that's one of the reasons you hear about a lot of Dollar Generals. They're your neighborhood general store. They have everything you need real quick. That's why they pick these areas. So we have future land use in our favor. The staff recommended approval of the rezoning, but not the variances. And then the Planning Commission also recommended unanimous approval as well. So, I mean, we feel like it's going to be a great looking product. It's going to look just like the other store that we built, except a little bit bigger. And Ron, do you have a picture of the brick store? If not, I have one. Yep. But this is essentially what the building would look like, except the front of the store will be, let's drop this one off down here. And the windows, instead of glass windows, we're proposing this basket weave type brick window instead.
Yeah, no, that's nice. See, that's, you do that, you do that.
So it's kind of your choice, back of shelving, or would you rather look at these kind of basket weave windows that I think will look good over time? They're not going to get dirty. They're going to last forever, essentially. So that's really it for me. If you have
Okay.
any questions?
All right, council, do you have any questions for the applicant? All right, if there are no questions for the applicant, I will, okay, let staff talk again.
Mayor, just for general information, the new store at 101,
Yeah.
they had submitted the windows on the sides with their original plan, and we suggested they change it, and it's got the herringbone pattern on the sides where the windows were with the shutters on it.
Like this?
Yes, and we thought it was a great alternative for us.
Okay. All right, let's do the public hearing. All right.
Speak as a representative of the property owner?
Absolutely, applicant or owner, go ahead.
My name's Jay Collins. I reside at 206 South Carroll Road here in Villa Rica, and I'm representing the property owner, the estate of the Haynes family. I'm the executor of that estate, and we feel like this would be a good use of this property. You know, the Haynes family has fallen on some hard times. Unlike other families in the community who have estates, who choose to let property rot, these folks just don't have an opportunity to, you know, do any improvements to this. There's been a third party who's been paying the property tax on this property for the last several years. And, you know, the gentleman that spoke, and he talked about the fact of a general store. You know, if you were down there in that community 40 years ago, you would have had 2 additional stores. There was a store just to the north on Highway 61, north of Stockmar. And there was also another general store that's located on the Tanner Hospital property that was more or less a general store. So this is an opportunity to, you know, bring a store back into the community. So, you know, we felt like it was a good opportunity. I know there are a lot of people that have heartburn about Dollar Generals, and that's fine. You know, it is what it is. But this is America, and, you know, this is a commercial piece of property, and it's going to be a nice structure. If 10 or 15 years down the road, Dollar General decides they want to pull out of that location, you're not going to be stuck with an eyesore. You're going to be stuck with a nice commercial building that's also been planned to help facilitate growth in the area. I personally was very impressed with that when we were looking at liquidating this property for the family as to what would happen years down the road. So this property takes into consideration, you know, all of that's going to be commercial. It is just a matter of time before the rest of those property owners come by and they, you know, have this rezoned. I mean, it's a main thoroughfare, the artery that comes into the north part of the city. There's going to be a lot of development there. And this is a step in the right direction. I applaud the council for their efforts in raising the development standard. And I think this does that tremendously. So, you know, they don't build these things not knowing where they're going to sell their product. It is what it is, and you know, there's a need for that, or they wouldn't be investing the kind of money that they're investing in this.
All right, thank you. Okay, I'm going to open this up for a public hearing now. So anyone who wishes to speak for or against this item, I'm going to ask you to come forward, give us your name and address for the record, and we'll let you speak for 3 minutes.
My name is Dr. Steve Woodall. I live at 686 Punkintown Road. And this intersection that we're dealing with, I've watched this for 40 years. I've watched it increase. I hear the traffic coming from Dallas or from Paulding County starting at about 4 o'clock in the morning coming down Punkintown. And the issue I have with this is the traffic problem. I've watched We've watched the traffic at the three-ways. We've watched people coming from the hospital go into the three-way and having to stop and hopefully let people get out of Harold Road. And that's been a problem, getting out of Harold Road now. How many cars a day are we dealing with going into a Dollar General? How many trucks are gonna be going into a Dollar General? Because evidently they're gonna have to be going in from Harold Road. So if that situation is the way it is, and then now that we have the roundabout, which has improved the situation over there, but I've almost been hit twice going up, when I'm coming up Punkintown and get in my lane, because I know how to drive in a roundabout, but people coming from Paulding County, some of them don't. And they come flying through there, and you're gonna, yeah, they think they got the right of way, and you're gonna have them coming out of Harold Road, and people are gonna get T-boned right there, because they're doing it for speed. I mean, it's increased the speed, that's true. But the problem I see is the traffic. And I think it's a dangerous situation to bring more. You know, if you make Harold Road come in and where everybody has to do a right turn and go back towards the hospital and get away from the roundabout, that might be a consideration. But if you throw them into the roundabout right there at that position, because, I mean, they're going to be crossing traffic to get there. They're being crossing traffic going to the hospital, crossing traffic coming to the three-way. And I just see this as a possible situation that could be a real problem. And I think that's a serious problem to think about. And because I mean, like I said, I've almost been hit twice already. But anyway, that's just my consideration.
All right, thank you, sir. Is there anyone else here who'd like to speak for or against this item? Okay, then I'll close the public hearing portion. We'll revert back to staff. Bobby, what is the traffic consideration there at Harold Road? I mean, clearly that is a problem at Harold Road, and the roundabout doesn't in any way help the Harold Road situation. Is there, do we have anything planned for that? We did a traffic plan. Did they take this into account?
We did not. Well, so far we have not required them to do a traffic study, which that time is yet to come.
Okay.
We can absolutely ask them to look at it and address it. But yeah, that being the roundabout being where it is, there's a problem there now.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the Dollar General is only going to, you know, it's going to add slightly to it, but the Harold Road is just close to that main intersection. But
but they'll do a traffic study.
It's my prerogative to require that, yes.
All right, I appreciate that. All right, council, do you have any more questions for staff?
I would just mention in regards to the roundabout, if you're not taking this into consideration, it is not complete at this time. The reason, because I've been down there too and watched the way they come from Dallas, I think part of the reason they're coming through the way they are is the concrete center has not been put in yet. It's totally flat, and all there is lines and whatever barrels that GDOT left laying around. Are the barrels gone? So it is not complete, and it's causing a problem that they have not put in that concrete center. I don't know what the issue is, but I do think that's going to change the dynamics of the way they move around that circle.
I guess that's a good question. When do they complete the roundabout? We have no control over that?
It'll be in the next several weeks.
Several being 3 weeks, are you saying, Jay?
You know how GDOT is.
Okay, all right, let's get back.
It's still a
up
good
here.
improvement.
Does council have any more questions for staff? All right, if there are no more questions for staff, let's take this one at a time. So what we have is a rezoning, and followed by 3 variances. So let's start with whether or not there is a motion on the rezoning.
I'm ready to move to approve the rezoning of 950 Dallas Highway. However, I have a question because it says the aforementioned conditions.
There's one condition.
Condition, sorry about that.
Condition.
It's right here, provide landscape.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Okay, there we go. Inclusive inclusive of the aforementioned conditions from AG to C1.
C1. Okay.
Second.
I have a motion to approve the rezoning of 950 Dallas Road, inclusive of the aforementioned condition from AG to C1. I have a second. Is there any further discussion?
I have a question.
Mr. Montahan.
My question would be for, would Councilwoman McPherson consider amending her motion for approval by adding 2 conditions? The first condition being, since that the developer's representative agreed to do a ground-mounted sign, that be a condition. And then the second condition, as the developer's representative mentioned, and I didn't see this, but to also agree to inter-parcel access to the adjacent properties to the east. These are both on the site plan, but they're not included on the, in the conditions, and I'm not entirely sure that they're in our ordinances already.
If they're on the site plan, aren't they going to happen?
Well, the site plan could be changed, obviously, during, it's not really the,
Okay, but they have to adhere to our current sign ordinance. I wouldn't have to tell them how to do the sign ordinance, how to do the sign now, because they have to be in compliance with the sign ordinance when it comes time to do the sign.
right, and like I asked Ron, he wasn't sure offhand right now if a ground-mounted sign would be required in the C1 zoning. So I'm just trying to secure the ground-mounted sign that the developer has already proposed.
I see.
I'd be
Okay.
fine adding both of those. I see what he's saying. Those are both conditions that we could deal with, so.
You,
Makes
so,
sense to you? Okay. All right, we're going to try to get these words out. I
all right,
move
let
to.
me- all right.
Yes.
let me hear you do it. All right, go.
I move to approve the rezoning of 950 Dallas Highway inclusive of the aforementioned condition from AG to C1 and to require ground-mounted sign and inter-parcel access. Did I get it
Well, if you want to
out?
say the inter-parcel access for the property, the adjacent property.
For the adjacent properties.
Just so that way they know that we're not talking about Willowbrook.
All right. I'm not even going to try that. So is there a second?
Yeah, I'll take a second on that.
All right. So,
Move us along.
yeah, all right. So I have a motion and a second to approve the rezoning with 2 additional conditions as noted by Councilwoman McPherson. Is there any further discussion? All in favor? Yes. All right, we did one without. So that's unanimous. All right, now let's move to the variances. All right, so let's take them one at a time. 9.046B. Do I have a motion on 9.046B? All right, if there's no motion, what am I going to do with that, Mr. Mecklin?
I'd move on to the next one, come
I'll
back
do
to
that.
it.
All right, let's try a motion on 9.046C. All right, if I'm not going to get a motion on that, I'm going to move to 9.04F. If I'm not going to get a motion on that, what am I going to do, Mr. Mecklin?
Well, that results in there being no variances granted. I guess you could take a last stab to see if anybody wants to move to either approve or deny the variances
All right.
as a whole.
All right,
Yeah.
let me
okay.
go back and try this again then. All right, 9.046B, this is a variance request to exempt the applicant from providing projections and recesses for the sides and the rear of the building.
Okay.
Is anyone,
Mayor, I'm sorry.
Mr. Montahan?
May I ask a question of staff real quick?
Sure.
All right, just because it's a long meeting and we've been here since 3 o'clock, Ron, which one of these 3 variances pertain to the proposal? Is it the one about the false windows?
That's
904F?
That's F.
The false windows, yes, that is.
Okay.
I'm sorry,
And so
9.04F.
the applicant's proposal is to use the herringbone design pattern instead, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Well, Mayor, I'll give you a motion on 904F. I make it.
Okay, well, let me do 9.046B.
Okay.
All right, can I get a motion on 9046B? Go ahead.
Ron, did you not, okay, you said the reason to have this is on those other areas on the back and side. The
right.
applicant feels that it's unnecessary because it's backing up to AG, but we're not saying there's not gonna be something there in the future, right?
Yeah.
So I would actually move to deny the variance request and exempt the applicant from providing projections and recesses on the sides and rear of the building.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion to deny the variance request from section 9.046B, exempt the applicant from providing projections and recesses for the sides and rear of the building. I have a second. Is there any further discussion? Are all in favor? All right, that's unanimous. Let's move on to 9046C.
Okay, on 9046C, Ron, did you not say that that seems to be a hardship to try to provide that 75%?
Well, I wouldn't call it a hardship, but I would say that it's just difficult to meet for a store, a modern
Okay,
store
so-
on a corner lot. That doesn't mean that it's a hardship. It's not. It's not a hardship.
Okay, so if we were to not deny that variance, allow it, what takes its place? Okay, not 75%, what takes its place then? If that's, I mean, I think it sounds excessive too, and I have you and your professional opinion saying it sounds excessive.
Whatever Bobby approves.
I'd be okay with that.
I don't have a percentage in front of me for
Okay.
how much window space will be left, but you could count on it being, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Jason, but it would only be the Dallas Road facade that would actually have windows that you could peer through.
Correct.
Yeah.
And when
Yeah.
the police drive by and need to look in a little bit, it's necessary to have some opening there or whatever. Can we,
That's 76 feet of windows, by the way. Just throwing that out there.
okay. So can we allow staff to handle that then? That's what I'd like to do. So, Mr. Mecklin, how would we word that if we,
Approve it. Just make a
yeah.
motion
Okay.
to approve it.
I would
and
say-
then
that's
it
fine.
automatically falls to staff? Okay, so I would move to approve the variance from providing the 75% of total facade length.
I'll second the 6C.
I need to say
yeah.
more. Providing a transparent storefront that accounts for 75% of the total facade length.
Second.
This thing is just completely off the rails. All right, I have a motion to approve the variance to exempt the applicant from providing a transparent storefront that accounts for 75% of the total facade length. I have a second. Is there any further discussion? All in favor? How many hands are up?
Three.
Oh, wait.
4 to 1.
It's unanimous.
It's
All right,
unanimous.
to approve 9046C. Let's move now. Mr. Momtahan.
Okay, so I guess
I thought you were gonna make a motion.
well, I had it in my head and now it's gone.
All right, 904F.
That was fresh.
This is a variance request on the windowless walls. Do you have a motion?
I think so. If I want them to duplicate what they've already done over there on the northwest side of town, then I think I need a grant. I need to.
You need to
this
approve.
variance. Is that right?
You need
Is
to
that
approve
correct? That's correct.
904F.
Okay. We'll make a motion to approve the variance request for 904F.
Second.
All right, I have a motion to approve the variance to exempt the applicant from providing blank windowless walls adjacent to residential districts and a set. That's unanimous. All right, that's done. Are y'all happy? Are you happy?
God bless y'all.
We should have ordered. Isn't it like the fun stuff we do with zoning? It's the best stuff we do.
It's
I
awesome.
love it. I love it.
Because
Still
we're
on
way out
section
in the
B of the
weeds for no
agenda.
reason. Way out in the weeds. All right, order, come on back. If I gotta be here, y'all do. All right, next item. Last item, I'm hoping. Oh, no, it's not.
It was just a financial.
All right, CF. No, you don't. No, you don't. All right, CF, ordinance to designate downtown Villa Rica Historic District. And we will have a public hearing on this one too. Ron, be ever so brief.
We have, we've already gone over this item
Right,
in the
this is
May
a
meeting.
holdover.
This is just a holdover, but it's to designate 33 properties in the downtown historic, on a local historic registry.
Well, no, that was brief.
Yep.
All right, council, do you have any questions for Ron? All right, if there are no questions, we're going to do a public hearing. Wait, yes, a public hearing. Is there anyone here who would like to speak for or against this item? You waited a long time. I still have your name down here from earlier. South Carroll Road, right?
Like you said, if you've got to be here, we got to be here.
Right. Come on up here. Give us your name and address for the record, and I'm going to give you 3 minutes to start the timer.
Let me get up here. Doug Lang, 262 South Carroll Road. So we've all discussed this many times. There's been public hearings. There's been PowerPoint presentations. There's been ads run in the papers. There's been radio ads. We've put this out there in every way, shape, or form. And I have yet to hear, in my opinion, obviously I can only speak for me, any legitimate argument for not protecting our downtown area, for not having both a local and national historic district. I've heard some arguments, very limited, and it seems to be from past experiences and some actual personal bitter feelings, but nothing that makes me think, rethink, and nothing that makes me go, yeah. There's legitimate reasons for allowing somebody to come and buy up 5 of these buildings and make them glass and mirror and take away 5 of the turn-of-the-century buildings there. And one of the arguments I heard that I actually thought about for a while was made by one individual that it's, my building, and I should be able to do what I want with it. And I thought about that for a while because some of that makes a little sense. But none of us really get to do that. I mean, I can't just burn leaves in my front yard in the wrong time of the season. The fire department's got something to say about that. We all live within some restraints. And it makes me think of like a homeowners association. It's my house. I pay for it. I pay the taxes. I do everything, but I still have to watch my grass, and I got to do this, and I got to do that. I think of this similarly, that people own these buildings, but I don't mean this, it's our town. It belongs to all of us, and that we all have a say in that, and that there's a responsibility that comes with having one of those buildings. And as we all know, as we've talked about again before, the historic district has nothing to do with the type of business that takes place in the building. And I don't think unless you're painting the brick pink with purple polka dots, it's got anything to do with the color of the building. And it just wants to make sure that the building's maintained, and when it requires work, that it's done with like products. And that seems to me to be a very reasonable request to maintain the downtown historic district. Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. Is there anyone else here who would like to speak for or against this item? Okay, so I'll close the public hearing, and this will revert back to staff. Council, do you have any questions for staff? If you do not, I will entertain a motion.
I move to approve an ordinance to create the downtown Villa Rica Historic District as a local historic district as indicated on the attached downtown Villa Rica designation map and described in the nomination report as presented.
All right, I have a motion to approve the downtown Villa Rica Historic District. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second to approve the downtown Villa Rica Historic District. Is there any further discussion? All in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you all very much.
We
Thank you.
got one more motion,
Thank you so much.
Mr. Mayor.
You can applaud, you can jump
Mr.
up and
Mayor,
down.
Another motion. We got another motion.
Still got another motion.
Oh, well, don't go yet. Hold on. I did the best I could.
Okay, Mr.
All
Mayor.
right, let's move on. Mr. Carter.
I move to make the necessary changes of the official zoning map for the city of Villa Rica to place an overlay under the zoning map for the designated properties.
All right.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second to make the necessary changes to the official zoning map for the city of Villa Rica to place an overlay onto the zoning map for the designated properties. Is there any further discussion? All right, all in favor? That too is unanimous. Did you say there are two more?
No.
Okay, sorry. So that's all the motions on this? All right. I'm getting to the point where I can't see anymore. All right, now you can applaud if that's what you want to do. All right, let's move on. Jennifer, welcome. This is very unusual, but you get to do this late at night. All right, guys, come on. Quiet. F1 financial update. Jennifer Hallman, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay,
Somebody
you
was waving
Oh,
behind
okay.
you.
All
I
right.
made a friend.
We'll go over this real quickly. There we go. Oh, it's just that one? Okay.
Blood circulation.
All right.
Uh-oh, what happened?
It's over there. So are you
All
good
right.
for me to go?
Yes, go. Go ahead.
Okay. We went over this, Sarah and I went over this with individually or as a finance committee, but I'll just go over the highlights and let me know if you have any questions. The first is the cash. This is as of May of 2021 versus May of 2020. You can see our cash. Total cash was almost $26 million compared to 18.5 last year. Of that amount, 10 million is general fund, 3.5 million is water and sewer, sanitation is 70,000. We are completely done with the 08 Carroll Splost. 2015 Carroll Splost is 2.1 million. The 2016 Douglas Splost is 2.2 million, and then, as we spoke earlier this afternoon, the 2021 Carroll Splost, we received bond proceeds, and that is 4.7 million. We'll talk a little bit about the growth or how we've been experiencing building permits. You can see that we are less than what we were May of last year. But as we discussed, it was that we've pretty much ran out of all the building lots from the recession. We had 3 good years. They range from anywhere from 225 to 275 permits. And this year we budgeted for 300. But we do not say that we're going to make that mark. It's just a timing issue. I think that, we will probably see improvements next year. While that affects building permits, that also affects water sewer taps. So you'll see that, as we discussed, we're going to have a decline in that revenue source as well. Sales tax is still coming in strong. You can see that for Carroll County, we've experienced a 26.5% growth compared to the same month last year, and Douglas County is 28.5% increase from the same time period. So that is good news, even though we're still kind of in the tail end of the pandemic. Even last year, I don't think we really experienced much of a decline in sales tax. Hotel motel tax, now this is something that we experienced a decline in during the pandemic. You can see for the October through December and January through March, we had a 10% decline and a 21% decline. But just these April and May of this year, we've actually almost caught up to what we lost in the first 2 quarters of our fiscal year. So with a 36% increase compared to April of last year and a 42% increase compared to May of last year. The business activity, as far as the water and sewer fund, we are, as we mentioned earlier, are going to experience a revenue decline compared to what we budgeted. But right now, we still have a net income in that fund of $407,000. Sanitation and solid waste, we are showing that we're having a net loss. As you know, last year there was GFL stopped collecting on recycling, and so we offered a discounted rate on the second cart to offset, in order to not have the increase that GFL was going to give us. So what we did is offered the second can at a discounted rate, and we're going to be coming to y'all in this next budget cycle with some recommendations on how we maybe need to handle that. Self-funded insurance, as you know, we're self-funded for our health care, and we have been in discussions with Strong Side Solutions in regards to our expenses for this year. This is the 4th year that we've had self-insurance, and according to the trends, you're going to have what they call a high claim year or a bad year within 4 or 5 years. So we're thinking that this is the year that we're experiencing higher claims. So far, the fund has had more expenses than revenue or than contributions coming into the fund by about $66,000. However, because the other 3 years prior to this, we've been able to build up a fund balance, you can see that our bank balance is around $726,000. That is it.
Okay, council, do you have any questions? All right. Again, this is information that has been presented for a while, so council would already have probably addressed. And plus, you had a finance committee meeting today or yesterday?
Today.
Today, so it's already fresh on their minds. Okay, let me move on just a tad bit. I see what that says at the bottom of the page, and I appreciate hearing, all your exciting positivity, but I'm going to ask you for brevity. You're going to just email it? All right, is there any high points you just want to hit real quick? All right, council, do you have any questions you want to hit him with right here in this spot?
Why don't we keep tabling something to do with,
We're still working on it with GDOT.
okay, and the thing with the lighting that seemed to have an attachment to a different area, is that kind of the same thing?
Okay, I want to just say, I know I joked a little bit earlier about Miss Marchman leaving. Just first, she's got a very legitimate reason. Her husband is in the hospital, and she's working through that. And I won't say too much more for that, but our thoughts and prayers are with her. She is a long-term member of this council, and everyone, has an incredible amount of respect for her. I will say to her, because we have that kind of relationship, I'm going to joke with her about leaving me here to do that. I didn't expect to have to do that, but listen, that's part of the job, and sometimes you have to do it. I think that this is probably the longest council meeting that I have ever conducted, and I would just tell everybody I did the best I could. But when you have public hearings, to me, it is important that the applicants have a fair hearing and get to say what they want to say, and council can get in as many questions as they possibly can. So with that, I will ask Mr. Macklin, is there any housekeeping I need to do?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
Thank
I'll
you, John.
entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
All right.
Mr. Barber.
I have a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second? I have a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor?